let me ask you here, like what you have for kind of a background on your character at present. I didn't really look over anything on D&D Beyond, so I'm effectively coming into this one blind for you.
Yeah, I haven't had. I put in like the kind of the bonds and laws and stuff. I haven't developed too much of like a detailed background. But essentially, so Dalton Demarcus Dem is. I was thinking he's a native of Ptolus or um, yeah, probably make him like a native. He he's charismatic. He kind of gets by on his charm. He's quick on his feet, but he's not the brightest guy, and he's always looking for kind of like the easiest and quickest way to make some coin. But he's got expensive tastes, and he likes to gamble, and so he's never any money that comes in is always kind of going out right away. So he's always having to take on these jobs to kind of stay just one step ahead of debt collectors. Um, I know you had mentioned like maybe like in in this case maybe he had like won something, but like he to collect he has to go do something else. Um, but I don't have like a real detailed background for him. I was thinking that could probably kind of like I could kind of develop that gradually.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, as far as I see what we're about to do, this will still be somewhat session zero. Like, there's still kind of a process to the actual character creation that I think is always ideal, and this will kind of play out in that because my next few questions here are kind of based on my response to that kind of idea of a background. I want to know if you understand and have plans for those things. So, like, if you're going to be from the city, are you middle class, kind of lower class? Did you grow up upper class and you've come down? There's a lot of room for once you're from here where things might actually begin for you. Are you down on your luck where maybe you've grown up and lived in like the guilds district for ages, and now you're like homeless and you're starting to head towards the Warrens? Have you kind of thought about those type of things, like where inside of Ptolus you might be from? Uh, and why are you in a different situation now?
Yeah, so I'm thinking he probably grew up lower class. But maybe he was around kind of wealth. So maybe his one of his parents or someone from his family kind of worked for like a noble or a rich merchant or something, and so he was, and that kind of seeing that but not being able to kind of like get a piece of it for himself is kind of what is driving him to he wants to essentially uh claw his way
So
up.
maybe serving somebody in a wealthier position. Perhaps one of your parents were, it could be anything from like a handyman to like a cleaner, like a maid inside of, perhaps not an actual noble's house. You would definitely be upper middle class to be like actual nobilities kind of servants. But perhaps somebody who's on their way up in like Old Town, somebody in Riversgate, perhaps like a priest or something from the Temples district. So you can kind of think of that. But like living inside of the Guilds district is one of those things for like lower middle class. It's horrendous air quality, but it's really cheap living because there is like still space to have, like, where there's space to have housing. Um, it's kind of like one up on living inside of the Warrens, which is basically like a lawless um, shanty town.
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Otherwise, like maybe kind of like true to form middle class, you might end up being somewhere from like the North Market or like the South Market. Midtown even ends up being a little bit higher class. Um, so it kind of like varies like a little bit like that. But that's kind of something to consider here is like where you're from. So where might you have more contacts? It's still a massive city. Being from the Guildsman's district or some such would give you a little extra familiarity. It's not necessarily going to give you a ton of familiarity. Um, and then you'll have things like what's kind of changed recently is Dalton like a young adult? Is he kind of like first venturing out on his own? Is he uh, maybe a little more seasoned? How old is he?
yeah, I hadn't thought too much about that, but I'm thinking it. Uh, Maybe he's been on his own for a bit. Hasn't done anything really of note. But
Like on your own, have you left Ptolus trying to find like stories of wonder, and you're returning now defeated and kind of broke? Are you something like maybe you left home and you've just been living kind of like gambling debt to gambling debt, just kind of getting by, and you're just like on the end? Do you have kind of thoughts on that?
yeah, so maybe if I remember from looking through the player's guide, like Midtown is kind of the section that has like a lot of taverns and gambling halls and stuff. So I'm thinking maybe he has been out on his own. Maybe his parents, like the parents died, but there really wasn't any sort of inheritance, or maybe like what he, maybe like the little that was left, like he used it and he went gambling and he won, and that gave him like a taste for it, and now he um, can't really stop. But essentially, his like his whole essentially goal really is like he's not a planner. He doesn't think far ahead. He kind of just, like you said, kind of goes from one kind of mess to another, always kind of just maybe just managing to extricate himself, again kind of more on his charm and maybe quick feet than anything else.
Gotcha. So if I understand correctly, the way I would say it is Midtown is where like the legal entertainment things are. Again, I believe it's one of the wealthier districts. And part of the legal being is like those are actually like kind of almost aided by the town guard, but I would not say in any large city, maybe in the more prim and proper districts, but at very least in the very well lived districts, you're definitely going to have all kinds of drinking, gambling, and brothels happening in shady, shady ways. This is definitely the large enough kind of a city where, there may not be a bunch of lower level like speakeasies in like the South Market. But if you're a local and you're a working class local, you probably understand where one or two speakeasy type of places would be. But yeah, like I think the Midtown otherwise is kind of the more or less known. So you might find yourself when you're down on your luck, kind of gambling inside of the docks, or coming over from like a guild gambling hall with some of the like iron workers. And when you make it big, you go up to Midtown because that's the only place that will take your bet for, say, like 25 gold or some such.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, kind of, I guess the main thing I'm not really sure on is exactly his like where he got like the, because he's a bard, so he knows a couple spells. I hadn't really worked out kind of how that um, kind of plays into his background yet. So I don't know if you have any ideas or.
A lot of that I feel like is always going to come down to how you flavor things and how you often role play things. You said this is more of an orator than it is somebody who's actually a musician. Do they have inclinations towards writing or even playing instruments, or are they simply kind of a speaker? Have you gotten by working as an actual like orator for hire, where you'll give I don't know, like speeches to unions, like motivational speaker kind of thing? Like what level of kind of how this person lives, and one of the things that I would say is you might have an understanding that perhaps the call to action that brings us to where we are today has simply been the recognition that you're starting to see the magic developing in your actual words. Where you always thought you were charming, interesting, captivating, you're starting to recognize that perhaps your words themselves have actually always held this power. It's almost like that moment where you kind of like notice in a movie, the person who got the new powers is starting to recognize. It's in like all of those like God complex movies where they like realize if they like say something, it's going to come into being. There's almost like that recognition with how I envision, especially orator bards, is kind of that recognition that they almost have to like create the poetry that basically says something like God, I'm horribly poetic, but like the man was shocked to be hell, and I don't know, whatever rhyming to notice. Basically, you like write a gold bar into your hand, and all of a sudden you like recognize you're like holding like a pound of gold, and you go to spend it and find out like a day later that the gold disappeared minutes after you like left the bar. I'm pretty sure that's an illusion cantrip where you can create a certain amount of precious material. It looks real enough to somebody, but it only can last for an hour. Like that's one of the things to keep in mind, like to start to like think about the cantrips that you have, especially. The spells would almost be like the big things that you accidentally have done. Um, just it's like a thought to kind of like slow play somebody who's a little bit older into becoming adventurer versus like often a kid. That's the perfect coming of age kind of thing where it's like, oh, you finally made the move to leave your parents' house and you're going at it at your own, and like in the deepest darkest time of the night when you thought you would never be with a home again and you were going to die of hypothermia in the rain, you like start to hold a little flame in your hand, and you start to recognize that this flame is keeping you warm, and through the night you kind of just shield this flame from the rain, and like that's the creation of your like magical ability. But those are like just two ways to do it kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Just looking at the spells. Yeah, I think it's like an illusory value or something.
It might be a higher level spell that actually lets you create something of actual value versus the cantrip lets you make something that essentially does not have value. But to me, often that's just simply the same idea of magic at different scales. It's kind of one of those things where I think, like, I'm reading a different style of play that has an actual spell called cantrip, and it basically is very open-handed. Magic users have this spell they can cast. It's essentially a cantrip level, a zero level spell, but it allows them to do what they want. But when you say that, it also includes like this isn't powerful magic, but this is the kind of thing where you start to do really cool things like cleaning yourself. So all of a sudden, like all of this mud and dirt, and you're like realizing you're about to go see the High Commissar. you're like, oh, take a second, and you like start to clean your robes. So while all these other fools walking covered in mud, you're in like stark shining beauty, beautiful like shiny leather, and you look better than everybody else. That's what cantrips. It's a very interesting way to think about it, but that's where like I think often you can take a high level spell and turn it into a very much weaker condition and call that like the cantrip. And I think that's where like those two illusions kind of play together.
Gotcha. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean so he owns an instrument, but he's passable at playing it, but it's not like something that he um relies on. I mean, it's kind of like the last ditch. If he has to, he can, if he's got no other way, and maybe like being on his own, that's kind of when he has to, he can kind of play for like a room and a meal.
Did you choose entertainer as your backstory?
No, I chose charlatan.
Gotcha. Yeah, so like entertainer is the easy way to get by playing for your meal. There's certainly opportunities that you can do things like that. You may decide to do it still things instrument based. But I would keep in mind like one thing that's kind of weird to think about sometimes, but like poets were always very, very famous people in ancient times because words are moving. It's one of those things to recognize like me, one of the redeeming qualities of rap is that a lot of rappers are some of the best poets that actually exist anymore. Nowadays, it's like bastardized into hooks, but like a lot of times, you have musicians in the modern times are the poets of ancient times. And I would keep in mind that perhaps like you're actually giving like a recital or some such thing like that. You could go up there and like recite the speech of the emperor uh, on like this and this date for this and this occasion or whatever, and kind of do the same type of thing towards that end.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and maybe kind of the one thing that sets him apart is he almost like he probably almost started doing it without even realizing it. But sometimes when he's giving these orations, whatever they may be, like he's almost like subconsciously at first he was using some of his like essentially prestidigitation to like add little subtle kind of when he's talking about a certain thing like a faint sound or a smell or something, and that kind of and then maybe like eventually he kind of figures out that he can control it a little bit.
Prestidigitation is one of those perfect spells. It's definitely one of those things where, yeah, like you can almost be having conversations with somebody, and when you're like describing the waves, you can like have these like scents of the salt water, like almost like wafting across your face, or like a feeling of the sea breeze. You can like hear the ocean. Little things like that are some of the really fun things to play around with cantrips, and that's definitely the type of thing where you would almost like develop that first. And you've got vicious mockery as your second one. That's the type of thing. Maybe that's just as much from almost how like comedians have to learn to control drunk
Yeah, like the hecklers. Yeah.
hecklers, yeah, that's the word. Yeah, so it's almost that exact type of thing. So those are two different things. Maybe you even learned vicious mockery before because it took you a long time to actually get good. But at the same time, you like develop that hardened skin, and your quick wit was the type of thing that you could turn like a hostile situation into almost like that tense situation, and then you get the laughter in, and that's maybe where you start to like the prestidigitation starts to charm them a little bit, and once you get somebody laughing, you've usually got them back around to like disarmed situations. So I think that's definitely a solid way to like imagine one potential for how you'll you would have kind of grown into where we will start today. Uh, if we've got you inside of the guilds district, as far as like where you would have lived here, there's effectively a lot of different housing places. You'd probably have a little bit more housing towards the actual Gilder's Gate on the south side of this area. Some of the nicer houses would be underneath like the Iron Street in like that northwestern area. Some of the worst things almost being center, where you'll find some of the larger factories. But you'll basically find inside of the Guildsman districts, there's pretty much very little space where there isn't factories. Often, many of these factories have houses built up in alleyways effectively behind them. Sometimes their roofs are covered with factories. This whole area has a pretty solid stench from um, the like refuse pit that is in the kind of southern corner over near that Gilder's Gate. You've got the Warrens up to the northeast. That is one of the kind of like most dangerous places to go. There's a certain recognition that that little bit of a difference between the Warrens and the Gilders district is a little bit of a hot center. Anybody who would grow up here, especially anybody who would start to tempt fate enough, would eventually find I believe this here is basically our guard tower. So if you have guard issues, and you can see that it is pretty close to the Warrens, if you have guard issues, you're kind of like going in that direction to look for a guard. If there is ever a fire, you're doing a pretty similar beat to right next to it, is where they have a fire tower, making sure that the guild district does not catch on fire. Other things around this area are going to be, again, very kind of austere, set up for the utility of a place to create and produce things. Often these are trade level goods, but there are plenty of places in here where you would know um, like smaller craftsmen as well. So, like if you go for your mother was the one working for somebody of a higher class, perhaps your father worked here selling like kind of one-off goods, almost like making small like leather goods, or in kind of a flipped way, if your father worked in one of the wealthier districts, perhaps your mother was here and was producing something like food goods for people who are working during the day to kind of sell street food during the day. So there's a lot of room in here because this is like a full city. This is a full industrial city kind of into itself. It really does kind of have everything here. But that's kind of a look over the guild district. Uh, if you have any thoughts on kind of placing yourself somewhere, you can let me know. We can build that in the future if you'd like as well. I think you have access to these same maps in that player's guide.
I think so. Yeah, there are a couple maps in there that I remember seeing. Yeah, I'm thinking like I don't know, maybe his mother was like a seamstress and his father yeah, kind of like just like sold one-off things or had like kind of odd laborer jobs. I imagine they're all, there'd be all sorts of like porter jobs and kind of almost like well, stevedores would be more the docks, but
So maybe your dad does that 24/7, 365. Perhaps your mother works for a lower upper class person 2 or 3 days a week as a seamstress. And like the other 4 days, she's here doing very starkly opposite things, like repairing like long johns and like very tough work clothes versus like those few days she goes to the river district and she's in there like sewing like fine satins.
Yeah, or I'm almost thinking like maybe she makes some money on the side, like repairing the uniforms of the guards or something like that. Or
I
yeah,
feel like
like
something like that, it would be, especially the guards would be a little bit more. Ptolus is very much a um God, what is it? Bureaucratic mess. This is
okay.
definitely a place of like there's very high culture to like the bureaucracy of this place. That's not to say that she can't like maybe help some like local smaller organization, but especially if you're from the guild district, that might be as simple as like if you land a contract like that, even for one of the smallest guilds, you would be certainly quite wealthy. Especially if it was a guild like the Gold Guild. I can't think of their name offhand, but it's a very small guild, but it rules over the price of gold. So where you've got like 40 people, they are very wealthy, very still like hardened like smelters. Um, but that's kind of the type of thing. There's a lot of little organizations that can fill that same idea as like being a clothier for a noble. So there's a lot of different things where she could get a contract like that, that wouldn't be the same as the guards, because like the guards you're talking about, I think Ptolus has something like 20 or 30,000 regular soldiers who are a part of the guards. This city is absolutely massive, and it's very much kind of like a Cold War state that things kind of sit in.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so like yeah, okay. So like bureaucracy wise, yeah, I'm thinking almost like the Prussian state, like where it's very like there's contracts for everything and there's very yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It kind of goes both ways, but that's how like the official thing goes. So like to live in Ptolus, you would have official paperwork. Um, One thing about this place, this is technically a world that has guns. If you want to get a gun, you can get a gun. But if you ever get caught with it, it is illegal to have a gun without separate paperwork and registration of that gun. So there's definitely like everything has kind of like official, non-official, and like straight up I'm just opposed to the law. So there's definitely like different levels of things. I'm just saying like especially with the guards, that's 100% like one of the official actions of this place.
Yep, gotcha. Makes sense.
But like some of the like other organizations, that's where you could definitely get pretty far away from calling anything official, like working for some of the gangs or whatnot. Um, but yeah, so we've kind of got this idea that you're coming from the Guildsman's district. You have probably been out of contact of this area for a while on this gambling binge, or do you think this is something like recent that you've gone on? Are you broke, or are you like what kind of present day are you? What's things like today for Dalton?
Yeah, so I'd say it's been at least he's probably been at least a month or two. Um uh yeah, maybe he's coming off of a gambling binge and he's been yeah, he's basically he's broke. Um got nothing left. Uh and maybe like he heard about a some kind of a job and Um, yeah, he needs.
So when you're broke and kind of down on your luck, have you like a place to live inside of the guild's district, or are you going to a place that is effectively the lawless kind of west and going to the Warrens? This is more or less kind of like if you're really broke, this might be where you turn to things because this is where you're kind of like protect yourself. Anything can happen here. But you basically, if you want to stay somewhere, it's basically keep somebody from coming in and either beating you up and taking all of your things or kind of sending you on your way. Are you this down on your luck?
Yeah, maybe he's got a few coppers left. I don't know what the um like he's down to his last couple of coins.
Gotcha. So here's kind of the difference. If you are finding yourself in a place like the Warrens, this would be the kind of situation where you have to kind of protect yourself at kind of all twists and turns. If you are finding yourself in the Ghostman district still, maybe you're still kind of standing on your own 2 feet a little bit, but you're starting to recognize at least almost like kind of the end of days. Something has to change, and you're at that point where um, maybe you kind of traded your cow for your magic beans, and we could go with you can have like a little treasure map. There are sewers underneath Ptolus, where you can go hunting for rats with the commissar. He is constantly hiring people to go after rats. Your little treasure map kind of shows an alleyway, and it just has kind of marked this crossroad of an alley and sort of just has drawn like crack into the rocks, and that's kind of what your map is giving you a little clue about this alleyway to check out and theoretically a entranceway that might go into the um oh, what do they call it? Like it's the undercity kind of. There's the sewers themselves, but uh, in times past, there's basically a lost civilization that's almost buried underneath your feet in the rocks. So theoretically, that map might take you somewhere. Otherwise, I think maybe one of the other things that you could do is simply kind of head out and attempt to gamble again. And maybe this is where your gambling would have to go into the Warrens that you have so little coin left, that you're kind of like into that thought. But when we pick up on your day and you're starting to recognize this kind of end game, that today is the day something has to change. Uh, how do you think you are going to go about making that happen?
Yeah, so I'm thinking, yeah, he's down to his last few coins. He realizes like he can only, he can afford like maybe a cheap place for like another night, maybe two. And I feel like maybe maybe he's had this treasure map for a little while, but he always just assumed it was kind of worthless. Um, but now that he's essentially out of all other options, he's like decides, maybe you know, maybe this is something. Maybe I'll try this out because he um, probably doesn't. If he, probably doesn't want to go hunting rats. That's kind of would be another option. But I think maybe he would almost like kind of convince himself that, oh, maybe this map really is something, and maybe my luck can't get any worse. It's going to start getting better someday. So maybe he will, yeah, try and kind of pull out that map that he almost kind of forgot he had for a while, and see if he can um, see what comes of that.
Roll a d20 for me as you kind of look over this map and do a little bit of an investigation. Oh, inside of Owlbear, you actually have to let me be able to see your dice.
Oh,
There should be, I think the bottom one says share dice. But what did you roll there?
that's a one. And investigation is
Gotcha.
intelligence, so that is a straight. That's a one. Let me see if I can note that. There we go. Okay, I think that did it.
So, kind of looking over things here, you're seeing like a little bit of a riddle on this sheet that kind of like gives you a clue as to where this almost like an upside down F, and you can kind of see like two little arms coming off of it, like in kind of a southeasterly way. And you can see that these are like three little streets, and you're kind of looking at it and you have like a little riddle in front of you and you're just looking over it and finding yourself kind of trumped and unable to figure out like what this riddle is. It seems like it has a three-word sort of answer, almost with kind of like animal underpinnings to it, but you just can't really come up to anything. Your let's say currently around like Vaterest Street, near where it crosses with Smith Street, in kind of a very central area here in the Guildsman's district. And you are usually safe bet that the fellow who you won this off of gambling usually wakes up in one of the um, it's like the kind of penny houses where you sleep basically leaning on other people, like on long benches. And this person is like tends to sleep at a place over on Licorice Lane, off to the south of you, kind of crosses Licorice Lane and Ring Road. So you're probably about like a 15 or so minute walk away from that person. Or you could go find one of your parents and ask them if they can make any clue of the riddle. What kind of thoughts do you have on that?
I feel like so his parents are pretty kind of no nonsense. They'd probably if he brought a treasure map to them, even if he tried to kind of
Yeah, they're going to basically tell you you need to get a job. We got you set up with all of this, this, and this, and give you the guilt trip that you're chasing a map.
yeah, and maybe they even like maybe even like his father or his mother, like they tried to set him up with like apprenticeships before, and he's always kind of just either like flamed out or just like blown him off. So yeah, so I think he will just looking at this thing, kind of not being able to make heads or tails of it. He would decide to, all right, maybe I need to go and try and see if I can catch this guy that I got it off of, and um see if he can if I can get him to explain just what this is. Or
Roll a d8 for me.
that's just the two. Sorry, gotta had to clear the old one.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely a weird quality of owlbear. So while you are walking down Curtin Street, everything kind of goes by. There's plenty of people, plenty of smells to the air. a little bit of filth. Definitely, you can smell. Um, I don't really care where the actual tanneries are here. One day I will actually look them up for sure. I know they're in my notes somewhere. But you can definitely smell the leather tanneries. It is definitely one of the biggest reasons the Guild District was always so far away from the higher district. You definitely have kind of one of those moments, like walking down Current Street is one of those moments where you're like pleasantly walking downhill towards the ocean, towards those cliffs of lost wishes. So it is one of those moments where you almost have that thought, like it's always more pleasant walking downhill, kind of thing. And you kind of head your way to Licorice Lane, perhaps nursing a little bit of a hangover. It would be rougher kind of walking into the actual sun here, but early this morning, you're still kind of like pepped up on this idea that you're going to kind of finally get everything started. You're finally going after this treasure. And right after you meet up with do you want to name the person that you got that from?
Um,
If you don't want to, I don't really care.
yeah, I don't have a particular name in mind. I feel like this
Gotcha.
is maybe somebody he doesn't know all that well. Like more of acquaintance than like a friend.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you probably know this person just as Briff. You've like met them a few times in that they've been sitting at the same gambling table. You've met them few enough times that they've yet to actually swing a fist at you. So you're in pretty good favor with them as far as you kind of see a lot of things go. As far as things go, these are the kind of relationships you like to remember because in general you've probably come up on Biff more times than he's come up on you, whereas a lot of other gambling relationships are starkly opposite. They tend to go in everybody else's favor for some reason when you go to gamble. But you're kind of like going through this little penny place and roll a perception here as you kind of like peep in and you're looking down at this little licorice lane penny sleep, uh, like penny benches.
All right. And that's straight again.
So you're just kind of like looking through here, and you feel like you see him, and you're just gonna kind of yell off. And you kind of recognize after a moment of yelling into this place, there's like 23, 24 people who were sleeping, and you just yelled at a guy in the corner. Roll a performance here for me. And you're probably like +4 or so with that.
+5.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you like yell into this small little place. Everybody's just stacked on top of each other sleeping. And as you yell into this room, you're pretty much waking everybody. You see him kind of wake with the start to his name. And you can almost see like as his legs are already twitching, like he's going to like stand, and kind of notices who you are. And it gives him a little like moment of pause, and then you see that he goes like right back to this first reaction of running from the sound of his name. And you're probably wondering like, or somewhat expecting like, he's got to think I owe him money or that he owes me money.
Yeah. So Dalton, um, seeing seeing Briff starting to like get up to run is going to try and like give him like a big kind of wide smile, like almost like a wave in greeting, and hold on, Briff. Not what you think.
Are you saying anything to all of the other people who are like in a commotion? Briff is kind of running towards you. And let me get a persuasion here from you. Is this the same, a +5?
Persuasion, yes, +5.
Crushed. Yeah, so all of a sudden, like, Riff is going to stop. Are you doing anything to placate the people who are inside of this place?
Did they Did they actually see me shout, or like essentially he would almost want to try and play it off like, oh, who who's yelling?
Gotcha. Let me get a second deception check here. So you're like yelling for Briff. You see him kind of hop up and start to like book it. And as you kind of like call for him to relax himself, you see as all these other people are kind of coming to. Nobody quite is quick to react because it's not their name being yelled. But all of a sudden, you've got this room of people up. Everybody's looking around. You're standing near the door. He's kind of like run towards you and kind of come to a stop. Did I miss the roll? I thought I saw something pop up there, but
Sorry, I just rolled it. So it'd be an 11. Yeah, he'd almost be like kind of popping his like depending on if he's like fully inside the door, he'd almost be like popping back out, like looking yeah, so you're trying to make it look like he's like just as confused as everyone else in there about who was yelling.
roll a d6 for me. So as you start to notice everybody getting pissed off, you're going to start to notice that a bunch of people are kind of just grabbing like the closest things they can to kind of fling towards you. As you see like the first thing kind of slamming into the door, you notice somebody's like chucking just a little bit of like a dried uh, biscuit type of thing, kind of like a sweet tack. Um, it's like a little bit of a ration. If you wanted, you could open the door and grab it. But you can see that there's other people who are like chucking other things at you. It's pretty early in the morning, and people here tend to be drunk, so you got a lot of hangovers. But you've also got Briff here, who's kind of looking towards you, and you can see that he's still like running on adrenaline and kind of like looking clueless at you, and just like, you scared me, mate. I didn't expect to have my name yelled. What do you need? I hope it
Yes,
comes with
yes.
a beer.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Didn't realize how loud I was being. And he's kind of like put an arm around his shoulder, kind of was playing up being like friendly, and at the mention of a beer is like he's like he's his like mind flashes to like, I got like 2 3 coppers in my purse, but he's like yeah, no, yeah, beer, of course, and he'll kind of start guiding um Briff over towards I guess if there's like a bar or counter.
Gotcha. So you could go probably about 20 or so minutes to kind of the southwest and go towards like an area where there's some of the actual breweries. That's we'll actually go for there where it says brewers close. And we'll say that's where some of the actual like brewers are. And that's the type of place where you can almost like walk through like a little part and get like some cheaper brews because it's directly from them. Otherwise, you all are closer to a few of the places that almost service like next to the Warrens. And you know of like a little pub that's like just across East Street. And that's probably like 2 minutes away from you. But you'll probably be paying a little bit more for your ales. Kind of the
Yeah,
difference of
he'll
like going to a pub and like standing up inside of the brewers.
Yeah, I think he'll kind of he'll head towards the brewers, and kind of knowing he's only got a couple coins left.
Gotcha. While you are walking with Briff, You guys can continue to talk. You are welcome to let me know what you might kind of go for. He's probably kind of inclined to figure out what is going on, but is also not necessarily trying to get all of the information out before he has a beer in his hand. But while you guys are going, can I have you roll a d6 for me? So you guys just kind of pass along this area. Doesn't seem to be much trouble going on. You notice that there are a pretty regular flow of people who all tend to have kind of the same uniforms, as this is kind of the time that most people are transitioning from where they wake up to effectively where they're going to spend the rest of the day until nighttime. Pretty typical, like earlier in the morning you have these long, like 12-hour shift changes, basically, of people who are going to basically be somewhere from like 9 till 9 the rest of the night. Often, any given area tends to be like the actual people who work that factory kind of living around it here. But you guys can head into the brewers close there. There's a couple of different breweries. You've got one place that has some pretty nice like spirits, things like whiskeys, gins, vodkas, that's kind of thing. You've got a place that makes a shit ton of ale, and then a place that makes a bunch of like different ales as well as things like meads. But they kind of have like a bunch of effectively, you've got the microbrewery. Uh, where do you think you would go of those places there?
Probably just the he doesn't, he doesn't want if to get any ideas about ordering anything expensive, so he's just gonna kind of guide him towards the more sort of regular ale brewery. And like kind of as he's walking him along, he's kind of like trying to just like making small talk, essentially trying to like butter him up, like almost maybe like recalling some stories about a couple of like their previous encounters, like maybe like a particular like dice roll that went someone's way, or just like little kind of small talk like that, trying to be
Let me get a charisma check from you here. You can do persuasion. If you wanted to intimidate him, you could do an intimidation with charisma. But kind of buttering him up, I feel like that's a solid persuasion.
so it's more he's not he's really he's I guess he's trying to kind of get him in like a almost like being disarming, but he's not really trying to persuade him of anything in particular. So I'm thinking maybe just like a straight charisma,
It
just kind
works.
of get him in a good mood.
Kind of like complimenting him, just making like a lot of things that like soften his mood. What's your
Right.
actual
Yep.
charisma?
17, so it'll be a +3 to that.
+3. Gotcha. Yeah, so like kind of going along this, like you're careful to remember the actual occasions where like when you guys were gambling, he came up on top, like big victories, big hands that he had. There's definitely a few where you can actually bring up where like the two of you came up on top against somebody else. So you get to throw them under the bus as like that other who was the opponent, and the two of you rose up to like conquer this person, and you kind of flow that into some of his victories that were very clearly your losses. And you do a good job of like kind of like holding down like the little bits of resentment, because you're like, I remember how long that cold night was when he took my whole purse on that hand. But you do a good job kind of buttering him up as you get him into this area. You all are eventually able to find your way. Effectively, this factory is going to be far more like an actual, like a, um, almost like a brewer's conglomerate is the wrong word. EMS is like a backpacker shop that the people who work there own it. A co-op. There we go. So this is like a brewer's co-op or like a brewer's guild, effectively. And it's simply like this place. They are the like ale guild here. This is one of the places where, say, it's that like largest brown building to like the southwest of Brewers Close. This is a building where they're churning out so much ale, and it is getting sent all around Ptolus and into some of the like settlements that are around the city of itself. But it's one of those things. This is effectively like the Budweiser of ales. It's meant to be an ale to purify water, like to make water safe to drink, far more than that you're going in there for a flavor. But this would definitely be a very strong location to get it from, because you're getting it from the source. This has not been like bottled or barreled rather to be sold. This is the kind of thing where you can like basically taste fresh batches. Uh, so you can get a couple of ales effectively here. Let's go for like 3 copper for 2 of them. I'm not sure what you actually did start with, if you started with less than you would have normally. But yeah, I think like 3 copper would be a pretty solid, like your pour.
Yeah, I basically had him starting with 3 copper, so that works out exactly because yeah, it's like this is all or nothing now. Like this doesn't work. He's got nothing left.
Gotcha. So yeah, so you kind of have this conversation, and you're kind of spending this time with Briff, and at some point you're going to discuss the map. You feel like you've done that buttering up job. He seems at least a little bit more like in tune with being awake right now. He's gotten his beer out of you. Um, Maybe kind of looking to see if you're about to order another one. You can kind of see like that little bit of like nursing. But what do you have in mind when you would go to kind of ask your next question here?
Yeah, so Dem will he'll kind of he's like maybe about halfway through like his first drink. He's like he almost he wants Briff to think that yeah, of course he'll be getting another round, but he's gonna kind of and again like kind of put an arm around his shoulder like as he's kind of talking about these kind of old times, kind of like gambler war stories. And he's gonna pull out the map and kind of just in a very friendly tone, like not like accusing her. And he's like, and he'll kind of like, be showing it to him, like, hey, you remember when I won this off you? When was it? Yeah, can't remember, but I was looking at it, and I don't know, maybe maybe it's the hangover, but I can't make I can't make out just what this is, and hoping perhaps you might be able to refresh my memory.
So this one seems like a solid like move towards the persuasion. You could do a charisma here. The beginning was still kind of like leaning towards the buttering up almost, but you almost made it like a actual like order kind of thing with the refresh the memory. And I feel like that's kind of the persuasive twist, where like it's kind of that moment when a friend comes over and you're pretty sure they're about to ask you for money, and it's like an hour and a half into like feeding them, sitting down, having a beer, and here we go. Now they're asking you for money. You can kind of see like that kind of like flows. Does that sound like a persuasion to you?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, like take your friend out to a nice lunch or something. Say, oh, by the way, I'm moving next week, and I'm gonna need some help with the, all the furniture or something like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Roll a persuasion here.
Yep. So that would be that 12, and that's plus 5, so be 17 total.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Briff's gonna kind of like chuckle to you as he sees the map and kind of like listening with a little bit more kind of like stern seriousness. You're gonna see as he kind of like puts his hand like over yours and kind of folds the map up like while he does that, and then he's gonna kind of like tuck the map back into your hand as he's kind of saying, well, you don't need to have too much interest. Delvers pay good money for that. We settled a very good debt, that was. And he's gonna kind of look at it, and he's gonna kind of look to you. Uh, let's see. I think I'm sharing my dice there. At work. It doesn't show up with my
I
bot.
yeah, I didn't see anything. Was that on? Did you roll on Owlbear or D&D Beyond?
On Albert, yeah.
Okay.
I just don't understand sometimes. I think I still need to do a fix I did last time, because Brave and Owlbear have a pretty unique issue. I just have to figure out what it was, and that's a problem. So it was one of the things like I was like, oh man, I might not end up wanting to use Owlbear for this, but I figured it would be minor regardless. I rolled a one though, so he's just gonna kind of like look to you, and he's kind of like chuckling a little bit. I thought you might have actually understood that. Been from this area, it's actually a little bit your stomping grounds. And he's gonna kind of like outline like one of the streets that's like the back of the F. So it's like the northwestern side. And he's gonna like kind of look towards the riddle, and he like points towards one section, and he's like, that there's the spine is your skunk. And you kind of see like the first part of the riddle is like the spine, whatever. Um, and then you're gonna see as he kind of like looks towards like this next little street, and he points to like the lower section of the F, and you're gonna see, and that there the roost. That's the easy one, and he's gonna like kind of outline this is the eagle's roost, and then he goes towards like the end of it, and he kind of shows you where like the last line is kind of talking about like the bounty you take away, and he basically outlines where you've got Skunk Street, First Street, and the Eagle's Roost. And basically, your map is kind of pointing towards the alleyway that runs kind of parallel behind some of those buildings of the Eagle's Roost and First Street.
So yeah, so Dalton will um he'll kind of pretend that like as you know as Griff is pointing this out, he's like kind of nodding along, like, "Oh, well, yes, of course, yes." And then once he's kind of done explaining it, he'll kind of like be clapping him on the back and knew knew I liked you for a reason. Say, think you could get the next round? I'll get the third. As he kind of is tucking it and putting it back into his kind of tucking the map back into his pocket.
Roll. Are you trying to trick him, or are you trying to continue the conversation with him? Are you trying to persuade him to get around, or are you trying to trick him into it because you know you can't afford a third?
Uh yeah, so yeah, he's essentially like he's a little hungover in like that first one kind of. So now that he's got this guy is like now he's with this guy and he's seems to be in a fairly good mood. He's thinking, oh, maybe I can ring an ale out, and then kind of when it comes time for the third, he's like thinking he'll make up some excuse and be like, oh, next time. Uh,
Gotcha. That's kind of what I was thinking. Let me get a deception on that.
deception. So that would be a 21.
So he'll go ahead and like with kind of a moment's thought there as you're still putting the map away. Like this place has kind of like a dedicated like bartender who's almost like secretary, and kind of know what I mean. Like it's a weird kind of thing. Like their job is kind of just to like do whatever. It's not like people come here regularly to drink, but they definitely do have people who at different times of day certainly come in here for a drink. So they kind of have like a double task job. But you kind of see like he very quickly will like raise his arm to get a couple of more drinks like brought over to you. And you'll see as he kind of throws a coin across to the person, and you can notice as he kind of like waves them away, like no change, that he just threw them like a silver piece. So on some level, you just saw either he spent 7 copper as a tip, or he also kind of just picked up your tab already. Um, but you kind of like see this happen, and as he kind of like slides that coin across when these other drinks are getting delivered, he'll kind of like look back to you like after this like silence of waiting. He'll kind of look to you and, yeah, be happy to buy you a breakfast as well if you were looking to get into delving. I had that map myself for quite some time, and I was always afraid to check go halves on what we find. You had a partner, you'd be a little bit safer. And maybe we both make it out of here, and perhaps that day doesn't have to be so harsh on my memory. And he's kind of like looking back to the map, and he's kind of like nodding to the idea, like he's still always kept in mind that he lost that to you.
Yeah, so Dalton will kind of eyebrows will raise a little at the as he sees him kind of at least to um comparatively he seems to be kind of like throwing money around. Um and the mention of breakfast is kind of will definitely he'll smile and be quick to breakfast sounds great. And as when he mentions potentially going halves on the delving, he's going to he'll kind of like sit back, he'll or kind of stand back, kind of make a show, kind of like maybe like stroking his chin, take another sip, um and then I think he'll kind of finally nod and uh Briff, I think that sounds like a fine plan.
So you guys can take some time having these ales, um, plot and plan as you might want to. Do you have any thoughts if you are looking at what is kind of like drawn as like a crack in the just surface ground? You understand that there are both the sewers as well as, again, I haven't like looked up what the undercroft area is, but it's basically like this old like as there's both like been dwarven cities as well as like a very evil kind of nemesis of the past, and that's one of the reminders of the spire. Like off to the west, you can always see this dark black spire that rises into the air, and that's one of the reminders of this crazy evil times where underneath the city there was just this massive cavernous land where the dwarves were wiped out. Their treasure remains, but evil creatures remain down there as well. And you always know of these stories of people striking it rich and kind of making it there. And you kind of got this little map like leading you into a hole in the ground. When you think of that, is there anything preparatory wise that would come to Dalton's mind that you would want to acquire prior to heading into the Earth?
Yeah, I think so he's where he's like not he's got he's carrying a backpack with he's got a few things in it, but he's wearing his clothes are um pretty nice, like fashionable, but maybe a little kind of dirty and wrinkled and stuff after his latest binge, but not kind of the really the types of clothes you'd wear down if you were, you know, suddenly going delving. Um, I think he'd want to at least pick up some rope, some probably some torches or a lantern or something. Um, he's thinking like he doesn't have any money, but he's thinking, maybe I can kind of pawn a few things, or maybe I can make up some story and get something on credit, or he's kind of plotting in his head. Um, but I think yeah, he'd kind of looking towards Briff. He'd be like, yeah, if we are going to be going down there, I should probably afraid I didn't quite pack for the occasion. Mind if we stop by outfitters? I'd probably like name a shop if you knew one.
So, like most people would recognize that for a lot of needs, there's actually called the Dwelver's Corner. It's basically a section of, I think it's the Midtown District, where you have some of the like actual sanctioned magical shops, some of the connections to some of the kind of higher price things. It's part of where and why Midtown kind of shines is that a lot of the dwellers live there. A lot of the adventurers live there. People who go down into the undercity and come back. Um, just kind of bringing that up, you're gonna have Briff kind of take a moment where he just kind of like holding your hand, maybe you're like kind of pointing off towards like the Midtown district and where a lot of those shops would be. He'll kind of like reach out for your hand and kind of bringing it back towards the table, kind of like bringing you back down a little bit, kind of with this idea like, "Oh, we don't have the money to pay for this map. We're gonna have to avoid the most common channels. Uh, how much are you short? uh and basically like what you want to buy, do you know how much it would cost like out of the PHP?
I can look it up real quick.
So he's basically asking you how much you are short, and he's going to start to kind of consider, we've got two things maybe we need to do, and he's going to look over his coin. All right, so he's going to look over his coins after having made some pretty nice winnings the night before. Briff currently has 3 gold, 2 silver, and 6 copper on him. So he's doing pretty good. This is kind of like high of his life. You came up on a really good time to kind of shock this man out of a drunken stupor as he was celebrating a drunken victory. And as he's kind of looking over things, kind of considering like, um, kind of like looking into your backpack, like if you've got a miner's pick, or if you've got like rope and climber's gear, if you actually have a hammer and pitons, you can kind of see like he's looking over these things and he's kind of talking about like a pretty like hardcore climbing operation is the way he's looking at this situation. And he's trying to see like what you have of that and what did you have in mind that you wanted to buy? Did you have a chance to?
Yeah, so because he's got I think it's like an entertainer's pack, which is not um,
Do you
not
have a
anything.
chest?
No, that's the diplomat's pack.
Okay, okay.
So he's got some ration, he's got some food and water,
But
bedroll.
like you have candles.
He does have candles, but he's got like so he wants to get so like some torches. Those are pretty cheap. I think they're a copper a piece. Um, the rope, like a 50-foot coil of rope, I think is a gold. Um, I mean, he's got his weapons and let's see, the pittons are yeah. So the pittons are can't afford, he won't be able to afford a climber's kit. Um,
How much is the climber's kit? That's like 25 gold.
yeah, climber's kit's 25. A grappling hook would be two. If you bought that with the rope and kind of just like tried to fashion one. I mean, the main thing is, I guess, for Dalton, also because he hasn't done like this delving before, so he might not know exactly. But the things he can think of off the top of her head is all right. We need light, so torches and some rope, and he's got a few days worth of food, so he's okay there.
Gotcha. So you're thinking like the torches and the rope, which is basically like one gold, one silver, or some such kind of combination. That's like 10 hours of light. You don't necessarily need it, but I think normally you probably want to pack more light than you necessarily need.
Yeah, so yeah, 10 torches would be a silver plus yeah, gold for the rope. Yeah.
Gotcha. So Briff is coming at this from like an opposite angle of where he's doing the math. He's looking at kind of actual like getting climbers kits, where he's kind of coming out to like 30 gold or so. And he's clearly like adding these kind of like costs up in his head, like trying to make the calculations what things would cost to be able to purchase. And one of the things Briff is going to offer to you um, is kind of like this idea like, uh, should we bring in money, somebody to take a loan out from, or should we go in with what we've got? I can buy us rope, enough light.
Do you know someone who might sponsor us? Assume they take a healthy cut, but I do admit I'm a little short on um, quiddity at the moment. So if you think we need to be a little bit better prepared, then perhaps it would make sense to find ourselves a money man.
Let me get a D10 from you. So yeah, when you kind of like ask about his connection, he'll get a little bit quieter. And you'll see as he kind of like almost like waves it off at first. Basically, like you guys check with the actual bartender, and they seem like the actual barkeep there. They seem good and kind of like busy with whatever they're doing. So you can head out again. You can keep your 3 copper, having essentially never paid for those drinks. He ended up paying for those. Um, unless you went back on your own and paid for them. But you guys can basically walk out of there. So he's going to kind of walk you away from that situation. You guys will head back onto Lost Lady Street and start to head down to the southeast. And as you kind of blend back in with kind of this like throng of people who are kind of always moving out and about inside of Ptolus, you come up on some of the stinkiest smells of the actual like heap that is to like the southwest of you all, and you're eventually going to come to the point where you guys turn along Ring Road and start to head down like the Blue Eyes Lane there. And you're going to come up to a little building at that zigzag right on the corner. And it's just you're like street side, like at a local butcher kind of thing, and you can see like everything going on around you all, but you're basically at like a little street side vendor. There's just like a little bench to sit down like near where they're kind of cooking up this meat at an open flame, and you guys sit down to basically like this is I don't know, like a plate of like offals kind of things. Like it's organ meat and very lower class. Like this is it's really good food, but it's the things a lot of higher class people don't eat because they don't have to. But you basically like sit down to this plate of like livers, hearts, stomach, very rich in flavors, very odd things for many things. But kind of being lower middle class, it might be the type of thing that you've had before. It can certainly be the type of thing where it almost sits, I feel like where like maybe haggis would be for some people, like for the Scottish. It's the type of thing that you eat, but you always wonder like if anybody would eat it if it were not for the fact that it's like cultural almost at this point. But as you guys kind of sit at this location, you're gonna see as he kind of like starts to point off down this little alley to where um, like the other streets kind of cross. You guys are. Let me actually highlight. It's kind of going for. I should have changed the color. Like that building right at like the crux of Blue Eye Lane where it kind of zigzags. So you're kind of like looking over First Street, and to your right, you're kind of looking at the alley to the side there. And he's kind of like pointing over there, and he basically is going to start to talk about um, roll a history check.
And that's flat 19.
Gotcha. So he's going to start to talk about this group, and he's going to be very kind of like secretive about it, basically never really giving it a name. And you can start to pick apart like what he's talking about, and it's not entirely unfamiliar to you that there is effectively a group of thieves. They're certainly very formidable for like the life that you live in, but it's called the Kill Raven. Oh man, I said that wrong. It's effectively the Killraven Crime League. There we go. That's the official like name of it. But the type of things like where people kind of like allude to things is you'll hear just like kind of like hushed whispers of a raven is kind of enough to sort of recognize like there's at least a little bit that maybe like if you're not here for trouble that perhaps you should go. There's a lot of kind of dangers to uh, what they can do if you're ever on the bad side of them. But they're also one of kind of the gangs and criminal organizations that is certainly not in the highest esteem or like the most powerful of such things. But they are definitely like a solid criminal organization that you would know about, and have certainly heard about in the past. And he kind of alludes to this contact and how recently he's been making bets and been able to take a little bit of kind of leeway gambling with somebody else's money, and he pays them a little bit of a profit, and then he's been doing pretty good with this contact he has in the crime league. um, and he's kind of saying like, if we're gonna go down there, and he's just again alluding to that alley that you guys are just looking over. um, and it's just like one of those things like, we bring in a partner, we can go in with everything we want. We might have to give them a percentage. And they'll kind of tell you like his gambling thing where he uses their money to bet. He's paying them 50% of what he makes. But like anything that he loses is always on him. So it's a little bit steeped in theirs. But like when he kind of discusses that, do you have a draw towards approaching this crime league contact, or do you think you rather go in with essentially what you guys have, like the three gold between you?
Yeah, so so Dalton is maybe like he's kind of like eating when this first like when he first starts talking about it, and then as he realizes kind of who he is, the group that's being referred to, he kind of like almost like stops, slows down, like chewing for a bit, finally kind of swallows and kind of cocks his head a little bit at Briff and kind of raises his eyebrows and very like quietly, almost kind of like leans in and some say the blackbird's a bad omen. But and then he's kind
When
of
you
like,
say like the blackbird's a bad omen, he's just gonna kind of like crack a joke to kind of like cut the tension, just at like kind of saying the word almost. And he's just gonna something like on level of like, oh, what do you want to ask a priest? Should we go to the Temple of Lothian?
yeah. So he'll uh Dalton will kind of like smile along and shake his head. He's like, he's no he's no priest or goody two shoes. Just merely making an observation, my friend. But I see your point. Beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. Oh, why not? What's the worst that could happen? He'll kind of laugh a little nervously as he says after he says, "What's the worst that could happen?" But so yeah, essentially he's saying, "Yeah, uh, go see if your contact will hook us up."
So when you kind of like go for it, you'll see like a little bit of a smirk across his face. And you kind of will have him kind of I'm not sure if I actually spoke about it. I'm sure at least along that walk on some level, and then now like having this like little bit of food, he would have kind of brought up the idea like, we're going to the black market. We're going to a black market at least to acquire some of these goods. If we go to Delver's Corners and anything comes up that you guys have that map could cost you your lives, if not basically eternal debt. It can cost basically like 2 to 300 gold to own a map. Um, Maps of the undercity are essentially the monopolist property of the Delvers Guild. It's definitely one of those things where everybody would like to kind of illegally make it rich enough, quick enough that they can get into the Delvers Guild before they ever get caught mapping the Undercity. That's a pretty typical kind of like lower class view of things, is that understanding that having a map in your possession is dangerous. And the Delvers Guild can basically enact any sort of justice they want because it's their property. Um, Otherwise, you, again, like that bureaucracy level, if you need to have it documented. So he's kind of like with this understanding, like, sweet. Instead of going to simply a black market, we can go to a Kill Raven safe house, see what we can acquire from the Kill Ravens. So let's say he heads off and is going to basically tell you he has to go check a contact, basically like look in on a safe house where he would get different gold for any given day of his gambling. And he would pay any of his debts from the day before. But he's going to head there, and then he'll meet you probably in say like half an hour off of Smoke Street near where it turns into Draper's Row. That's kind of like a little bit southwest of like where the fire station is. Draper's Row is like right by where it says 307 in the center of the map. And he'll basically have you meet him there in about a half hour or so. Let's say it's just kind of like another um what's some of the names there? Probably have like a lot of smoked meats and things maybe going on in that place. You can see like one of the shops nearby is effectively doing like dried rationing, and this is basically industrialized creation of like mixed kind of like MRE style rations, where it's like hardtack and pemmican. It's not the choice of one or the other. You're getting both. But he has you wait there. He's going to head down Dead Orc Lane a little bit to the south of you before you lose sight of him, and come back a little bit later here. I would like you to roll a D100 for me here. All right, so he's gonna come back in about that same time limit, right about like the half hour mark. Um, Biff basically has. I spoke to my contact. I got a little bit more gold. I still have to be home before night to make sure to earn some profits. And paid my debts. We're all set here. And he said you're welcome to come on in and we can discuss what would be a new deal between ourselves. And he kind of like looks to you like, does this sound good to you?
So yeah, so Dalton will kind of give a little bit of hesitation. Almost he's almost like he was almost hoping that Griff would just essentially, talk to the contact and he could kind of stay out of it. But when he comes back and says like, okay, yeah, he'll agree to meet you, he'll kind of like take a deep breath and then like,
If you
right,
want, how about this? Like, if you want Biff to make the arrangement, you can give him that power. You can let him know that basically while he's walking over and telling you his plan. If you want him to make the arrangement for you, he'll get like a little bit kind of flustered. Um, you'll kind of see him like maybe a little bit stressed, like now he's making a deal for the two of you. Um, and he's gonna, if I have to explain what we're doing, what the money's for, Oh, want to see the map. Do I talk about the map? What if he makes me show him the map?
So Dalton will kind of think about it for a moment, and then kind of shake his head and decide, no, I'll just I'll come with you.
Gotcha. So you see like a sigh of relief come over him as he realizes like he doesn't have to make a deal for the two of you. Make an insight check here.
But he's also kind of like joking, like, you don't think they need my real name, do you? Kind of like half jokingly, I should say. So that'd be +2 on an insight.
Gotcha. You have a pretty solid sense that part of why he might be most worried is that if he goes back in there to make a deal, that's a deal between him and the Kill Raven. If he goes back in there with you, it's a deal with you, him, and the Kill Raven. It's definitely a different story when there are other people in on this deal. But you guys are going to be kind of brought into this location. He basically walks down Dead Arc Lane, and you guys turn up Astor Street, and you're going to like walk up kind of a shanty, like broken down stairway that goes like up to a second floor of one of these buildings into a tiny little hallway where you're basically like walking shoulder to chest or like the back to chest like against this wall. This hallway is not like you can't do anything but just go sideways down it, and you kind of squeeze down this hallway before you're going to come up on just this tiny little waiting space, and it just seems like a storage area that should never be, uh, but for some reason is here. And as you kind of like sit there, you're gonna see as Biff kind of like taps 3 times against one wall, twice against another wall, and then like 4 times against this like the other wall, like of the 3 walls in front of him. And he does these little taps, and then after a few moments, you guys are going to see is like a little bit of light kind of creaks up from the floor, and you see as this wall is kind of like raised to the ceiling and will basically open up into what seems like almost like a little gambler's den, maybe a little bit more like an opium den. And inside of this small room, still like 20 or so feet by like 10 or 15 feet, it's still like kind of a octagon, or not octagon, rectangle. Uh, but like 3 or 4 people kind of relaxed sitting on sofas. Pretty nice clothing. You can see that 2 of them are effectively like courtesans, basically, kind of like one is cuddled against one of these other people, and then one of these other courtesans is kind of like sitting on a couch alone. And then you've got this one person who's actually sitting at a desk. And they're just kind of like sitting there, and you can see they are in some sort of mental state of focus. But eventually, as you guys kind of like walk into this room and you like hear this kind of like doors sliding shut behind you, you're gonna see as this person kind of lowers their hands and kind of like with a recognition from behind their desk. Oh, welcome. I didn't get your name, friend of Biff.
Uh, so Dalton's going to he's gonna walk up, kind of looking around a bit. His um you can call me Talvers.
I know you said something about, like, I hope they don't know my name. Did you actually warn Briff that you were going to say some other name here?
No, I think he would have thought about it after he left him, like once he like as he was headed off towards the meeting spot, he's like, "Oh crap, I should have told him. Don't mention my name." But he did not actually tell him not to.
Gotcha. So let me get a deception from you. And this is going to be a group deception where we're also going to have Briff, who is tested here as well. So I rolled a 5 with him. I don't know how high you have to roll to be successful here. So, oh wait, what's your plus on that one?
So that's an 18 plus 5.
And you said Talvers.
Yeah.
So the person behind the desk is going to kind of like smirk to you, raising up a hand. You're going to see as they kind of like reach out their hand with their palm almost entirely facing down. It's very much kind of like a little bit of a power play. You have to twist your palm up into a little bit of like a submissive form. Your muscles just kind of don't hold the same strength in that like effectively prone state, and that's how they reach out their hand to shake yours. When they do this, they are going to say, "Ah, Talvers, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. You understand we here do not require your paperwork to know that your name is Talvers. But it is a pleasure to hear we might have business together. You need a loan of. Would you like to say the value that you would like to make the loan of, or are you going to look towards Briff to see?
I think he'll glance towards Briff.
So Briff's just gonna kind of like catching his like breath a little bit real quick, almost shocked to see that he's being called on again. You're gonna see he's like in a panic. The 30 gold, we just 30 we need, and he's gonna start to say before he kind of catches himself. But he's gonna kind of like steadily nodding his head like 30 gold. Well, I could certainly loan you 30 gold. But what are you after? How much would you return to me? Would you like to pay for me to know nothing of your venture? Or do I need to know how risky you are, Salvers?
Um, so he's going to kind of smiling like a kind of trying to smile a disarming smile. Is like, what you don't trust us? But then he'll kind of like shake his head and kind of realize that maybe this is more serious than he's used to. Um, and he will kind of glancing again towards Briff and then back towards the towards this figure. I don't. I mean, I think discretion's always welcome, even if it's a bit more expensive. Agree, Briff?
So you're kind of looking towards Briff again, and he just immediately nods. Like he definitely didn't even like think about whatever you were just asking him. He's like already in the process of nodding and just kind of like goes along like, yes, 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 discretion. You'll see the kind of figure behind the desk kind of reacting. He'll kind of come back with, well, I'm not in the habit of loaning money so cheap. But Briff and I have had a relationship of recent that's been profitable, and I can see where perhaps he's trustworthy enough that discretion is acceptable. But discretion costs money as well. Let's say I've got a trade bar, 50 gold pieces. I've got a trade bar here that needs to be consumed. And as he's kind of spinning it, you can see the symbol of the Empire on this bar. Basically, kind of like enough to show, like, if he can't like use that in public places, it's because he stole it from the Empire. And you guys are in the makeshift capital of the Empire right now. The Emperor lives here in Ptolus. So he's kind of like flaunting this. You can kind of see that, well, if you guys cut up and consume this, paying for your duties, by the time he gets paid back, he's going to have something that is effectively not the stolen bar of gold. Um, but he is going to kind of ask you, well, I've this trade bar. You have your adventure ahead. Perhaps it would be acceptable to say 30% stake in your venture. If you pay me 150 gold, we are even. If you do not come up with my 50 gold, you will owe me twice that in a week from. And basically, like, it'll be 150 gold in 2 weeks. If your venture becomes profitable and you guys pay him 30%, and it is more than 50 but less than 150, you know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of like how that agreement would kind of play. He's going blindly into it to see where you guys might pay him up to 3 times what he takes, but you guys would come out of it with like basically 500 plus gold. He's getting paid his full 150.
Gotcha. So it'd be either 30% up to 150.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay, and then
if you don't like pay off from this venture, like if shit goes south, you owe him 100 gold next week and 150 gold 2 weeks from now.
gotcha. So essentially like 100% interest per week.
Yeah.
Like it's
I mean, yeah, this
gotcha.
is not like a friendly, you're not getting a patron here. This is definitely getting backed by a criminal. And I don't have a lot of dealings with criminals, but I feel like that's a solid way to say this guy's a loan shark, or at least that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe I got. Yeah. Um
So I need to take a break here. I feel like it's
I've-
always a good time to give you an actual thought, like time to think about a deal, because you still kind of have an out here, where perhaps you guys can say no. That is up to you to decide whether you want to say yes, whether you want to try to like sway for different conditions. But I do need to take a break, so if we can take like 15, come back 8 or 10 after the hour, kind of thing.
yeah, I was actually just about to suggest that, yeah, if we could take a quick break, so that works out great. Yeah. Yeah, I'll catch you
Awesome.
in
So consider that, and then yeah, when we get back, we can talk about it more.
all right. Sounds good.
Did you have any other thoughts at this point about the deal?
I think to to Dalton's mind, this is basically just another gamble. So he's um, in the back of his mind, maybe there's something wanted, and maybe this isn't the right thing to do, but he's gonna go forward with it.
All right, yeah. So this person, I think you guys were like basically right about to shake for the deal. If you go ahead with it, you'll basically shake on it there. Um, they'll look to the two of you, kind of giving you the terms again. Looking over to the like people who are on the couches, kind of reclined right now. You'll see um, calling to the girl who is sitting like alone on one of the couches. Just kind of see like just with like his look, she'll kind of like stand at attention, basically having listened to everything, understanding what's going on. His recognition was all it takes. This person stands up, they walk like behind like just like a little curtain. Again, it's like very opium vibe kind of thing, opium den vibe kind of thing. Come back out. They are going to have. Oh, my bad. I had him with the actual trade bar. He's going to set you up with that trade bar and that over to you. At which point, I think Briff would probably like bring up that you all need some more things. Like, if you could, and he's gonna kind of like nod towards one of the doors to the side and kind of like come across like asking, "We need to go into the black market." And with that, they're just going to open another one of those doors, similar way it kind of like slides out of nowhere in one of these walls, kind of just to what the right side of the room would be the opposite end. So you kind of like cross over and you can walk down and uh, probably feel pretty steep stairs that you're walking 2 or so stories down, that you're actually walking underground. It's pretty regular. The sewer system is there, and then that's where you get into the undercity. But a lot of places kind of have their um, like cold storage, like dug underground, and find access where there's their own little caverns. But they'll give you guys access there. You'll kind of walk down. In general, you're just going to see kind of like a cavernous area, probably like 60 or 100 feet off in the distance. Everything seems to be lit by little like bobbling lights, and you can see every like 60 or so feet, it's like a little candleless flame that's just bobbing there in the air. And this whole place is just kind of like set up with things. And soon after you walk down into this, you're just going to hear like that same soft kind of like sliding of like wallpaper against wallpaper as that door closes. And then you guys look behind you and you're just like inside of a cavern. And this whole kind of like almost like a swap meet kind of like looks out ahead of you. Wouldn't take you long to spot somebody who basically has like trade goods kind of things where you could get um again, if you went for a climber's kit, if you just went for rope, but you kind of have a trade district kind of ahead of you.
Yeah, so I think let's see, the climber's kit I think is like 25 gold, so it would be if we just got a pair of those, I think that would be uh, would take up all of the trade bar, assuming this is like PHP prices. So maybe would be more like getting a uh maybe like a grappler's kit, um grappling hook, thing of rope, torches, um maybe one climber's kit.
Gotcha. So when you basically like gather those things up, I feel like that's like looking at what, like 37-ish or something. Is it even less than that? But you're like looking at like maybe mid 30s.
So maybe we get two things of rope. So each one apiece. So the one climber's kit's 25. Grappling hook is 2 gold pieces. Oh, we'll probably get 2 of those. Um, one for each thing of rope.
Gotcha. So
So
if you
looks like
go
about 31, 31 gold, 1 silver for those.
when you go over to this merchant and you kind of grab these different things, not an especially kind person, but just kind of like looking at everything, um, you eventually kind of like gather it up, and they're just gonna kind of look at you like dumbfounded, like you're holding all of these things, and they're just gonna say, "How are you gonna pay?" And you brandish the trade bar.
Uh, yeah, I think, and he'll try to make a show like, oh, this is like not it's not unusual at all, and he'll just kind of here you go.
Roll a performance for me.
+5.
So like Briff's like standing back here while you're like walking up to this guy, like just holding all of this gear in your arms, like you're gonna somehow pay for it just by will of wanting it. And you look like a kid on Christmas Day with like holding every single present, even though you can only play with one at a time. This guy like looks at you, you get this like just kind of like awkward, and then you pull out this bar and you're gonna take a few moments to like basically call attention to everybody who's nearby and who can hear, to make a show of how normal this is for you to do. And you're just gonna like see like, or Briff rather is just like looking by and watching as basically everybody starts to like listen to you as you're like spending this gold, and the guy's just gonna take the trade bar from you, put the like put his like knife, just like a big old um I don't know, like hunting knife, just like a large like 10 or 12-inch massive knife on the bar, about like 3/4 of the way across it. And he's gonna like look to you. It looks roughly 30%. So it'd be like 30 gold. Or my bad, 60%. So it'd be like 30 gold. But I want you to roll a d10 for me here. One would be good on this roll. Got a
2.
two.
So,
So he's gonna cut off was it 32 gold? Yeah, he's gonna cut off 32 gold worth. Your bar is still worth 18 gold.
sorry, and I forgot. Also wanted some pittance, so it'd be 5 more silver. So
Yeah, for all I care about. Like, no, that's how I was doing it though. You had this trade bar. He was cutting for the 30% mark. Your role was to see whether he hit like 30 or like 39. You know what I mean?
gotcha. Okay,
So
so
yeah, he cut it off. Those pythons can be a part of that already. That's perfectly fine.
gotcha. Okay, so about 18 gold worth left. Gotcha. So like 36%. Yeah. So
Yeah,
he'll
exactly.
So Dem will kind of like still kind of playing up like, oh, this is, I do this every day kind of thing. He'll kind of just hand over the about half of the stuff over to Briff to carry, like, one of the things, rope and all that. Um and then he'll kind of all right, think we're all set, and he'll kind of like nod and kind of much obliged to the being very friendly, and then come on, Briff, and he'll
Can I actually have you roll a d8 for me? And then I
sure.
wanted to ask, like, do you already have rope? Is the entertainer's kit the one that doesn't start with rope?
Yeah, it does not actually have any rope.
Okay. So if you wanted, you could throw like both piles of rope to Briff for now. If you wanted to carry one as part of your own gear, you are perfectly welcome to do that. But as far as I'm concerned, you can effectively write down everything that you just purchased there. If it's on Briff, it's currently part of what you own. But I'm not gonna like, you know what I mean? If you don't want to
Yeah,
carry it
yeah,
because of weight, you can list it as like being on Briff. How about that? That's a great way to say it.
yeah. I'll just make a note saying being carried by Briff for certain things. Yeah, but I'll add it all to my inventory.
Well, part of what I was saying though is if you actually go in there and you create a new kind of thing that you have, you can like name that thing Briff, and put stuff in there and have nothing in there show up weight wise. That's part of why, like I say, you could almost use D&D Beyond to hide that weight as you have
Oh,
something
right,
on him.
right. A new container. Just call it Briff. Yep. Okay. Yep. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. So he can take some of those things. You guys can get set up here. Looking through this place, you'll see like this is definitely a place where you see one or two things that are like really shiny, really beautiful. There's a lot of stuff that if it's not like magical, you could tell yourself that it was. There's a lot of really cool stuff to be seen in this place, and walking through it would probably be like a little bit astonishing to actually see. But you might have still heard rumors about all of these undergrounds, but like to actually see the bizarre and the real might be still pretty like almost like punch drunk kind of experience. Because this is one of those recognitions like if you really follow this call to destiny and you like start to become a delver, like all of this stuff is the kind of things that delvers are just walking around and swimming in. But as you guys climb up out the kind of passageway that you're going to come up in, let me have you roll a d6 for me, please. So when you all come out of here, you're actually going to come up in a little corner alley, uh, and you can kind of see like a little bit of street to the. I got to give you the direction of northeast. You've got buildings both like sides of you, like from where you can see that, and then a building would be behind you. But kind of looking around, you're like cubed into three buildings. You see a street to the northeast. Would you go that direction?
Uh, yes.
Gotcha. So when you guys walk out of this place, you're going to find that you were kind of came out of the black market from a little stair, like in this back area. It looks like it's almost to like the cellar of one of these businesses, but when you walk out, like it's not actually connected to the business. It's just this weird alley where those four buildings come together. But you're just gonna walk out onto Wayfair Street, and you guys are down here now.
Wayfair Street. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see the little pink mark where I marked? Yeah, it's kind
Yep.
of there.
Yep. Right
So
a
you
little
kind
bit
of come
above
out of
the
here.
310.
This place is like kind of Romanesque in that like the cities are marked. So when you come out so close to that corner there, you would actually be able to see just kind of walking a little bit towards it. I'm not sure how good you are at it in New York, but I feel like our signs these days are amazing. But it maybe would be kind of easy once you're there, like a lot, to kind of come up on it, and you'll see like this is where Lost Lady becomes Wayfarers and connects with Ring Road. So you would have a pretty solid familiarity here. Like you guys could cut directly across there. You could walk like through the actual streets. You've got everything on you, so you look a little bit more adventurous right now. Um, probably about middle of the day, less people than there was in the morning, but you also have a solid understanding that there is kind of a like shift change that can happen pretty much at any time here. Do you have thoughts what you would want to do? Do you intend to go straight for the mapped area?
So I guess so Dalton, probably having grown up in this area, has a pretty good sense of kind of the flows. Like, right, is there almost like a kind of equivalent of a rush hour when people are leaving work? Is there kind of a time when there's quieter? Um, and he almost kind of wants to, realizing that they might look a little sort of conspicuous now with all this carrying all this stuff. Um, might suggest to Briff, maybe we find a little quiet place to wait a bit, and maybe make our way over when it's hopefully maybe few less prying eyes on the street.
Riff's first thought is going to be bringing up a bar, the Gut Rot Tavern, where he wants to sling some cards. You guys could go wait there. It's just back over towards Licorice on Brandywine Street. Uh, right along, let's go right next to that little like fountained area. He'll bring up that little tavern. You guys could go there and basically gamble until like sunset and go shortly after dark.
Yeah, that'll sound good to Dalton.
So right now, I believe you've got approximately 18 gold worth of coin in your pockets, and you guys are gonna go and sit there and gamble. Um, Understanding that he's kind of invested in what you're gambling, Briff is definitely a gambler and has 11 gold on him because he's got to make his own deal as well. So he has a solid amount of gold on him. Uh, you have gold on you. Are you both going to gamble all of your gold while you guys are here?
Um, so I guess one thing is that so the gold that Dalton is carrying is still in the trade bar form, so he
Yeah.
would have to probably.
In the long run, this is definitely one of those situations where I'd say you could certainly take some time to like modify that. But for what it's worth, I would say if you go for like a Roman style of a lot of things, can certainly be barred. There's definitely coins in this place. Bars give up a little bit of, but they're not. It's not necessarily unheard of, like for the guilds to make deals in bars. Um, so it looks a little weird, but it's also not necessarily completely weird. Say like almost like spending with travelers checks, I guess.
Gotcha.
Oh wait,
Okay.
did you hear me there? All right, all right.
Yep. Yep. Uh, yeah. So in that case, yeah, he's going to, I mean, this is more money than he's had in, even though it's not really his, right? But he's almost, he's thinking like he's flush now, and he's doesn't want to worry about, it's going to be dangerous, going down. He wants to take his mind off it. So yeah, he's ready to just kind of go and let loose.
All right. So here's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna cover a single set of dice here that are going to determine what you're gambling over this next like dry amount of time inside of Gut Rot is going to play out as. What the game is effectively you're playing like poker. I had it set up that you would roll 3d20. Um, you can effectively choose not to roll these. The first d20 is simply like your hand. It's a 1 to 20. If you roll the second one, that is a deception check. and that one is to basically cheat, um, or otherwise like manipulate the cards, and that basically lets you roll with advantage. With that one, though, you are counting on your third die being higher than your opponent's third die, which is their, it's basically your check level. The person whose third die is the highest can either see a bluff or um, basically it's the like third tiebreaker. So the game is basically you can roll with advantage if you would like to bluff, but then if your third die is lower than the opponent's, you lose. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, but I have to decide whether I'm going to cheat before I see my
Yeah,
first
like
die,
if you
right?
played straight, you're gonna play a D20 versus a D20 to see whether you came up or not while you were gambling tonight. It's simplified down into a single roll. So I mean, we could play it real quick without actually making it for anything.
I mean,
I
I think
don't think
yeah, I understand
so. If you sat down to play cards, you're playing with money that feels almost like it's yours, but almost like it's not. Do you think you are going to end up kind of like, and this is the same thing as like sweet talking people and manipulating the cards, just any different way that you kind of manipulate during this night? Do you think you would end up playing straight cards, or do you think you're going to end up playing some level of cheating?
I think normally he would not be opposed to cheating. But he's almost thinking like almost like maybe almost superstitiously like it'd be a bad kind of a bad omen or a bad um kind of thing if we if he tries to cheat before they head down and he gets caught out. So I think he's going to play it straight.
And playing with all of it?
Uh I think he'll try to well, I guess first question, like, is would playing with all of it, like, given the place that we went to, would that raise eyebrow? Like, is that much more money than people in this
I'm
town
not
is
going to
normally
hold that
bet with?
against you.
Okay, I just want to yeah, so I think he will actually I'm gonna do a wisdom check for him to see if he can kind of be a little
Gotcha.
smart and hold a little back.
So I think like I don't know how often you've looked into what like DC's kind of play as. 5 is easy. 10 is like, like a little bit of effort. 15 is difficult. 20 is hard. 30 is impossible kind of thing. So like under 3, I'm not sure if you've got a wisdom modifier, but that already is like roughly around like, is this an easy check? If not, he failed.
Yeah, I was thinking it was kind of like a 10, 12-ish DC, so he is going to
Yeah.
he's betting everything.
Gotcha.
He's not
So
smart enough to
if you're playing straight cards here, what I'm going to ask for here is we're just going to do a straight D20. I am not sure if mine's going to show up, but I think I have it set so it should. I've rolled an 8.
yeah, and I mean I trust you, so let's see.
So yeah, just playing straight cards, you're just going to try to beat an 8 here. Um, yeah, so let's go that this is effectively a war scenario. Um,
Roll another one.
Give me 1 second here. I know I wrote down my notes on this card game. I want to think if I missed any of like the intricacies of what I was thinking.
Only thing I can think is a tie is essentially like you gamble, and at the end of the night, you essentially broke even.
Yeah, I was just trying to think if I had um had something set up. Yeah, I had it written hand, cheat, and then scene. So I think it was like your deception check and then sleight of hand check for the final thing. Um, yeah, I would say just kind of breaking even is actually perfect for a tie there. Um, let's have you play for like 50% of it just to kind of see real quick. Do another d20.
Sure.
Oh, crush it. Crush it even better. Oh, wait, mine's adding.
15.
Yeah, well, mine was adding so for the 17. So yeah. So for what is that? Walking away with another half of it, you would have gained another 9. So you have 27 gold. Roll a D100 for me, please. Odd was going down, even was going up. So 9 gold, another like 33%, basically another 12 gold. So you've got about like 30 gold by weight right now on you. And then
Okay. Well, and I also
Biff,
assume like probably while we were playing, like he was probably ordering some drinks and stuff like that. So
yeah, and that's 100% the type of thing you can always pay costs for like your living expense style as you're doing things like this. But yeah, as far as I was concerned, by turning it into like one little die game for the night, I'm perfectly happy if that covers those things. But I 100% would never stop you from ordering other drinks if you wanted to and paying like if you wanted to. But I would like you to roll for Brifford. Brifford 100% is going to try to cheat, and he is going to try to sneak his way through this. So I would like you to roll 3d20. Um, and this is unfortunately where adding up is kind of unfortunate, but we'll still need like the three to compare to each other.
all right. Well, the first one was a 1.
All right, well, he's rolling with advantage because he's cheating. So the second one, I got a
Yeah.
7
I got a 2.
and a 9.
Oh wait, it looks like it knocked the
Oh, you're showing a 17 or an 18 on mine because you've got 19 right now.
Yeah, I think it not that second die, I think it knocked it from a 1 to a 2 somehow.
All
So the
right. I
second one
wouldn't be
must have been a
surprised. Right now,
second one
you've
must
got
have
a
been a 17.
17 and a 2 showing.
Yeah, so I think it was 1, then 17.
A lot of people hate Owlbear's die roller. I think it's actually gotten worse since I used it last. And then you got a 16 for your sleight of hand for how secretive you are about it.
Yep, 16 would be the third.
Yeah, 100%. You're going to crush that there because I think I had a 7, a 9, and then the 5. Yeah, Owlbear is really unfortunate. I should have just rolled my actual dice. If you have actual dice, this is one of those things where I would invite you to roll them as well. We don't have to use Owlbear at all. But yeah, I'm gonna say Brifford is going to 100% go in there. He is an excellent cheater. He does quite well, and I'd like you to roll a D100. This is going to be the same thing. It is minus for an odd and plus for a even. So he's going to double plus another. So it's like 11, 17. I think like 5 or 6 gold. Yeah, 17's pretty solid amount. So he's going to walk away with 28 gold.
Yeah, and Dalton is definitely the type that like when he gets a little bit of money, he's throwing it around. So he's tipping extravagantly well and buying drinks for people. And
Gotcha. Let me have you make a Constitution saving throw. All right.
that'll
So
be 11 total.
Briff's gonna get a little bit too drunk. While you guys are heading over to the spot that night, you'll certainly know like he's not like drunk loud. He's not drunk like puking. But you can definitely see like little hips almost in his steps as he's walking. And you can kind of hear this a little bit. But otherwise, he's going to be impaired just from the actual drinking there. You did perfectly fine not drinking too much, but he's definitely super stoked as far as things go. And you guys can head on over. This is basically waiting for the night to change a little bit here, where people have effectively either gone to bed or like have gone to specific taverns. This is one of those things where taverns are basically the place where pretty much everybody who's doing anything social, it's simply going to a tavern. It's a local place where somebody's got light, they're producing food. Some people might be in bed, and there will soon be like a shift of people leaving the factories. But that's like 3 or so hours away. So this is kind of like that dead season. You might see some guards walking the roads, mainly sticking to the main roads uh, every 5 or so minutes. But you've probably got like those ropes inside of the backpacks right now, and more or less like just look like people. You'd look relatively discreet. Once you're ready to use the ropes, if you pull them back out, that might be a little bit more obvious something weird's happening. But you can kind of get away with the backpacks as you head over there. Do you have any thoughts before going there?
Um, no, I mean, I think so. Briff's a little drunker than Dalton is, but Dalton's definitely kind of in high spirits after winning and having a good time. So he's feeling less, less apprehensive. Um, he's like, everything's coming up Dalton so far. So I think
Ah,
he might.
I forgot to show the gut bomb. Oh wait, can you not see this right?
Oh, I see it now. It just loaded for me.
Yeah, I just realized I didn't show it before. My bad.
But yeah, so he might. I guess he'll. Yeah, he doesn't really have any specific things he want to do. Maybe just, I guess, like kind of, you know, he's almost like checking his supplies, but he doesn't really know. He's not experienced, so he's kind of just like fiddling around with things more so than actually doing
So
anything
maybe a
productive.
little bit more paying attention to kind of like checklisting your items, almost like saying everything like as you go over it in your head, then like paying attention as you walk.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, rope, torches. Yeah, like before you leave the house, like, all right, keys, wallet, phone, all that. So like kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Let me have you roll a d6 as you're kind of walking across the street, or these streets, making your way from this little tavern and heading towards your map's location. Was that a 3?
Yep.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of like arriving with a very little occasion to see the guards, much more than off in a distance. When you do come across them at their closest, they're walking away from you, so they're like only getting further. You guys walk past a few people. All of them seem plenty busied about themselves. Um, Nobody ever gets too close to you. Nobody ever gets a good like vantage in the light to see you before you all are able to get into that little alleyway. You're basically going to kind of like walk between some of these houses. And as you are in a pretty similar situation where you're squeezing through, everything's very oblong in how it's built. This is a type of city that it's just kind of like build where you can, because if you stop building somewhere, somebody else might build there. And that's kind of how things are zoned in at least the work districts, especially like the Warrens.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, kind of walking over there, you guys are like snuggling up to effectively, it's kind of like cement work almost, um, like semi stone kind of walls on some of these buildings. You can still hear like the actual district is alive. The guild's district never really gets quiet. And as you guys kind of come back here, it's got like the stench of filth. Um, Alleyways tend to be places where the rain is the type of thing that really cleans the street, because people add their chamber pots. So this is not like an especially great place to be. You're like pushed up against the walls, but eventually you kind of like cross into this main section, and you're almost just like walking along like this no man's zone where you can see like a window into a little apartment. And when I say window, just an opening, where you could kind of walk into somebody's house here. And then there's like another part where it's a little narrower, and two of these houses have windows that are open like 8 or so inches apart from each other, and you have to go like shoulder to shoulder to squeeze through. But like this whole time you're like walking through this narrow little area, and just with your feet you're kind of pushing aside, looking at like the corners for cracks. I'd like you to roll an investigation, please.
And that's a flat 10.
Gotcha. So it doesn't take you long to like push aside a little bit of vegetation, and you can see where like this like little tomato plant is growing up. And when you push it aside a little bit, you can see that not only is it growing through the cracks in the stones, but there's a much larger crack. And when you look at this larger crack, it's like maybe the size of your fist. So you're kind of looking at this, and you're going to have to put a little bit of effort into widening this to get yourselves through. I'd like you to make a strength check as you guys take a little bit of time. There's like an oncoming change in the hour where in Midtown, one of the guilds has a large clock that will strike 12 times, and you guys are getting close to that where you'll have 12 solid chances where one of the loudest noises would happen. And I'd basically like you to make a strength check when you do that, please.
And that's subtract 1 from that, so that'll be an 8.
Gotcha. So you kind of like match all of these up, and it's getting close to where you think you can fit through. You've lost the clock striking. Do you want to try to squeeze through as it is? Or do you want to take a little bit more effort without necessarily having any sort of cover to try to get like a little bit more stone out so you kind of know you'll make it through?
I think Dalton is like the as the peels of the clock fade away, and he's kind of looking at the hole. It looks a little narrow. It's like, but he's we can make it. So he's gonna try to squeeze through.
Briff's just gonna like he's bigger than you, so it's not necessarily a question of whether you can make it through, but it's definitely more you almost have to like look at his build and you're like, yeah, we can make it through. And he's just drunk enough that he kind of looks at you with a smile, not even recognizing that it's him who's taking the risk. And he's kind of like 100% like, with you, sir. Let me have you make a. You could do a constitution saving throw or a survival check.
I feel like
That you
he's like,
can if you have proficiency in survival, my bad.
yeah, he's kind of just like he's like trying to suck in his stomach and stuff. He doesn't have survival proficiencies, so just be a con check. This will be +1. Yeah, +1 to that. So a 9. Oh, if you're talking, I can't hear you now.
Oh no. So you kind of panicked a little bit while you were squeezing through the rock. I'd like you to do a wisdom saving throw as you're basically breathing so deeply that you've now kind of like wedged yourself into the rock where you cannot move right now.
And that's straight 11.
Gotcha. So you kind of take a few moments where you calm yourself inside of the rock, but after like it takes you 3 or 4 minutes, and after a few moments, you're able to slow your breathing enough that you can just kind of like exhale and slide, breathe calmly, exhale and slide. And after a few moments of where you're crawling like with your kind of back to the stone with gravity pushing down. Your feet are a little bit below you, and you're kind of crawling through a crack, almost like going over the curve. If you were curve of a bagel is the only thing that comes to mind. But if you're going over like a weird curve where your feet are below you, your back is behind you, and your your back has your weight on you, and you're kind of like sliding down and slowly getting closer to where your chest is above your feet. But you're kind of finding it opening, and it's getting a little bit more like now you're holding yourself from sliding. But basically, at this point, you're pretty well completely in the dark and starting to feel the sensation that you're going to slide. Um, do you take the time to light a lantern or light a torch here? You're completely covered from the city and the street around you at this point.
Yeah, I think now that he's in a little ways, he's gonna try and yeah, kind of reach into his pack and grab a and light a torch.
Gotcha. So I think I have you black screened right now as I have everything on this map um, currently grayed out. I would like you to roll me a d8, please. That is not what I meant to erase, but it's also not necessarily bad. Um, Bam. That's what I meant to erase. So you are going to continue to like slide down this surface when you take that time to light the light. And you're going to see like an opening space in the rock before you. Great signs. Not only was there a crack in the ground, but it expands into a bigger place. So it would be at least like a happy experience to recognize like smell doesn't smell like the sewer, so you're in like caverns that can potentially lead anywhere. But as you kind of like look around here, you can see that there's a little bit of an opening to the south of you, a little bit of an opening to the north. With a little bit more investigation, though, you can see that there's this room, and it's pretty well isolated. That there's just a single way to go off to the west. And again, you're kind of like sliding in and crawling in from kind of like this surface here that by the time you get here you can like hop onto your feet, and again you don't have to be that simple, but like that's where you can kind of hop onto your feet, and in fact maybe we'll just call that riff.
Yeah, I don't have any big preference for a. I'll use the loot symbol since he is a bar.
Gotcha. Yeah, honestly you can also drop a symbol in there. If you have a picture of who Dalton is, you are more than welcome to I think that plus symbol should be exactly what you would need to add a token. But you're kind of inside of this room. You have the one exit to the west. When you go to move, can I have you roll a d6, please?
It's a 2 on the D6.
Excellent. So as you come out of that room, you see a long hall ahead of you. Kind of opens up in a few areas. There's like stalagmites and stalactites that are almost connecting in other areas. And just kind of looking around this area, there's a bigger opening to your right, and then up ahead, it seems like it kind of forks, going off into your left as well as up into the right.
Um, he's going to kind of looking at the options. He's going to almost do a little kind of like say a little rhyme in his head, and then he's going to go. He'll kind of gesture off with the torch up to the left, and uh, kind of come on this way. Let's try this way, Biff. Start trying to move, yeah, up and to the left.
So, like over to there.
Yeah.
So, as you kind of motion in that direction, you all start to explore around. You're going to see as this cavern kind of like curves around in a corner and kind of comes back on itself. And as you continue around, I would like you to roll a d6 again. So as you come around this corner, you're going to see another section in the rock where it's kind of like split across. And in a very similar way, you can kind of see that the rock can like slide down deeper in. And the moment the light kind of crosses that, Biff's gonna kind of like turn to you and like with a look of excitement, he's like, the deeper we go, the better things will get. We've struck it rich, friend.
That's what I like to hear. Um, uh, Onward then. Caught up in the moment, and he'll start to try to kind of move down lower.
Where are you moving to?
I guess where you said where it starts to kind of slope down. Is there? Did you say there was a way to get down that way?
Oh, like what I'm saying, and what he would do if you say onward, like you guys are inside of there. I wasn't necessarily holding back like where you would move from. But like when you say like onward, he's going to like start to hammer away at the rocks here and like create a new passage through this spot right here. Like onward to him is going down.
Yeah, yeah. That's what. Sorry, that's what he meant. Yeah, he's like when Briff's like, the deeper we go, the better, and um, Dalton's got like he's kind of caught up in the um excitement, so he's like, yeah, let's go, let's get in deeper.
Gotcha. So let me go for just a strength check here.
His excitement is outpaces his actual physical abilities. That is a 2.
So struggling through a little bit more difficult, taking a little bit more time here. Let me have you roll a d8 for me, please. So you're gonna spend most of an hour chipping away at this before you're kind of getting close to that same point where you're looking at the actual area to squeeze through and you're starting to question whether you can make it or not, or if you should spend more time in it. And effectively, this is like the time where the torch is going to go out, and I'll need you to basically spark another torch.
Gotcha. Yeah, this time now that we're inside, I think he like let's take a little more time, maybe try and widen this a little bit more.
Gotcha. Let me get another strength check and then another d6, please.
That's a 9 on the strength and a 1.
So as you all are striking into this rock, you're going to just kind of be like chipping away at it slowly with these hammers. It's a lot more like the struggle of actually trying to hit the right angles than it is like it's like strength. You're struggling to get kind of hammer to the rock. And while you're going to do this, there's going to be kind of a moment in the clatter where you're going to hear kind of like a squeaking and from kind of like a little bit of a almost seeming like an air pocket, you're just going to kind of like hit into the stone, and the stone's just going to kind of like shiver as it shatters down like a few feet away from you. And there's going to be rats start to pour out. I need you to roll a initiative check, please.
So 18 for initiative.
So you're both prone on the ground as these rats are starting to pour out around you. What would you like to do?
So he's going to attempt to scramble to his feet. Uh, and so are they kind of on top of us already, or are they? Um,
Yeah, this is more or less this is effectively like I like rat swarms because they're kind of on you. There's not like necessarily getting away from these so much as like, if you ran away, they're gonna opportunity attack kind of thing, but like when they get to you, they just swarm onto you kind of thing.
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he's kind of like scrambling to his feet, almost maybe trying to like uh, throw off a few as he's trying to get his blade free, and he's just going to try to kind of stab out and almost try and like skewer a few of these rats at once with his rapier, and that would be an 18.
Rapier is piercing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so kind of like throw it. Let me get a damage roll from you as well. I think that's a D8 from a rapier.
Yep. So that would be
Um,
11 damage, and then I think
Gotcha.
they're
So
feeling.
as you're kind of like pulling these rats off you, and you're able to start to like push them away and grab in for your rapier, there's enough of them swarming you in enough ways that you're able to kind of like in a few key stabs, like you're glancing through multiple rats. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of damage, as you see very quickly. Like when the rats are harmed, their response is just as much to flee as it is to kind of keep biting at you and doing what they're doing. So, like, the more rats you hit, the more you can kind of see, like, this strike almost creates them spreading away from you. Um, Let me have you. Do you care to do any other movement?
Um, I think he's a little too kind of surprised to move much. Um, but I think so I think he's just kind of like he's kind of like just standing up and trying to like kind of stab at these things, but otherwise staying put.
Gotcha. So, Briff is going to pull out uh, two hammers, and he's going to kind of like look around at everything. And I would like you to make a attack at the rats that are kind of swarming around the two of you. You're gonna see as he kind of gets into like a kind of like pissed off look, and he's going to basically go into a rage. But you can give him advantage here.
So
Let
that'd
me
be an
get
18.
2d20, 18 solid hits, and then um, little hammers are probably like d6s, so let me get a d6 plus 3,
So that'd be
doing
8.
like 8 more. Yeah, so when he smashes into this creature, you smashed into these, just kind of like batting away like massive amounts of these rats with all of these attacks. You can kind of see like a solid amount of them are kind of like in shock and running from like your blows. A lot more are starting to swarm around Briff as you guys have kind of focused in on that same. And what we are going to have here is as they start to bite into you, um, they will. Oh shit! I had a previous roll. I think it says 19 plus 1. So that's going to hit. They are going to deal 1d6 in damage. I need to clear and roll 2 damage to you. As like just a few rats are left, like nibbling on you. But you can still kind of like sense like there's there's a lot of little rat nibbling. No rat nibbling you is acceptable. And then the others are going to bite into Briff. Another 19. These will do 2d6 to clear 4 and 4, so 8 damage to him. Roll a d12 for me, please.
10.
All right, so Briff's gonna have 6 health left here. Um, he's got these rats biting into him. You've got a few left on you. What would you like to do?
So I think so Dalton is going to try and he's going to keep stabbing at the refs that are on him, and as he's doing that, he's like kind of like come on, Biff, they're just Briff, they're just rats, nothing to worry about. Trying to kind of inspire him to um boldness. So he's going to give an inspiration die to Briff. I'll roll my attack first.
He can only add that to d20, correct? Or can
For 10 minutes, creature can add it to one ability check, attack roll, or saving throw.
gotcha.
And it's, I mean, I don't know how you do it, but it's supposed to be after the roll, but before knowing the outcome. But obviously, for an NPC, that's difficult to pull off.
It's the same thing as trying not to metagame when I play as a player or as an NPC here. So yeah, you inspire him. Did you say that you were also striking out? Was that 18?
Yes, the 18 was my strike, so it would be 8 damage
Five,
piercing.
8 damage. Are you going for the ones that are still on you?
Yeah, the ones that I've already been attacking. Yep.
Gotcha. So again, it's kind of like just like skewering the last few rats this time. Now that they're not like swarming around you, you're able to just grab the last few, basically killing off the last that are remaining here. There's still rats like skewering off into both the cave where you've come from, the hole where they were coming from, and then like the hole where you were kind of hammering. Is they're almost in the same area as each other.
Yep, and he's
Would you like to? My bad. What were you thinking there?
um oh, I was just gonna say, so okay, so that 4 is the inspiration for Griff. Um
Oh, you don't have to roll that yet. Normally, I have like the actual person
oh,
roll
that's right.
that.
You roll it. You're right, yeah.
Yeah. So like in person, it's really, really convenient as the bard to have your actual like inspiration dice because you can give them to people so they like know, oh, like, oh, that's not my die. Oh, it's because I have inspiration. Um, it's not nearly as easy in this world, but like you kind of own Briff on some level, you just don't speak for him. So like when you want to use your inspiration, you are perfectly welcome to, but it would roll like at that time kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but
I'm
this
used
is where
to
it would be on Briff. Um, he can gain advantage when he goes to attack. I think you could still, like then decide if you want to do inspiration. You said it's before or it's
yeah, so
after.
I
You
can
said it was after.
yeah, so I can roll, just don't tell me if I hit. Just give me a second to decide
Gotcha.
if I want to use it.
Yeah, so he's a raging barbarian, effectively going reckless here. So you can attack with advantage here. He's got two hammers that are d6 plus 3 damage. Um, is that 18 one roll or is that two?
So it'll be 13 with the advantage.
So
Plus whatever his
13 is the
modifier
hard
is.
die roll. It should be plus 5, so an 18 is going to hit. And then can you roll? It is a d6 damage plus 3.
So it'd be 8 damage then.
Gotcha. And then he has now bonus action. Um, yeah, well, technically it would be free action pulling his weapon this turn. Bonus action still able to attack. So he would have his bonus action still with advantage.
I assume that 17 will hit, and then it'll be 6 plus
Gotcha.
or no, offhand, no modifier, I guess.
Offhand would just be the hard die roll.
Yeah, so just 6.
Gotcha. So he did 14 there with those two hammer attacks. And then the rats are going to attack back. Eight's not going to hit a bard or a barbarian. They've got +2. Yeah, 10's a big ol' miss. Um, could that hit you? Do I have to roll whether they're attacking you or him? Can a
I
10
get
hit you?
no 14 AC because he is wearing leather armor. He would have.
Gotcha. So for what it's worth, they're kind of swarmed around the two of you at this point. Um, not necessarily attacking either, but each of you, they are missing on that go about. So it'll go back to you. Theoretically, you guys should be able to clean up these last of these rats um, in this next moment here. You'll see his kind of Briff like kind of calms a little bit. He's going to be pretty quick to like look around, not really recognizing what's going on. And after a moment, he'll like could use a beer about it though.
And Dalton will kind of nod, and he'll looking around these rat corpses, and well, they're not from the sewers, but might be able to pass them off as such. Right, the commissar's
Roll a
offer.
perception check there.
Flat 19.
So you can see inside of this crack where you are, there is a corridor where the crack's doing what it was before, where it's almost like this rock has kind of split on this like slanted curve, and that's kind of like leading down. But you can kind of see like deeper inside of that, you can actually see. I guess really it'd be a little bit more you could kind of hear like the flow of water. That like right here in this location, you're actually both leading down deeper into the earth, as well as you potentially have an entryway into the sewer. Those are, I don't know if you would ever use it for both, but it gives you access to both.
Okay. So
It'd be
he
more like if you really like criminally needed a place to like hide and disappear and arrive anywhere else in the city. Like the sewers are really good for that, and you now have your own secret entrance, is kind of what I'm telling you. I think that's the benefit for doing wily bard like things.
Gotcha. Because what he was thinking is like if there's a bounty on rats, so if we take some of these you know corpses and go and get a bounty, say we killed him in the sewers.
Oh yeah, my bad. 100% yes. Anytime you kill rats, that is a post from the commissar. There is a constant bounty for them. I think it's a lion, which is a gold piece.
So he's going to try and yeah, grab up some of the dead rats, probably thinking like I should have brought something that I could wrap these things in. He's kind of holding them a little bit, kind of out, like his arm like outstretched, kind of holding him by the tail, dropping him into his pack. But he's kind of looking over Briff as he does. Does Briff look bloody? Like did the rats chew into him too badly, or visibly that Dalton can see?
Briff definitely has bites on him. He does not look terribly injured at this point. He is not bloodied. Um, Let me have you roll a d10, please. So, as you kind of go over all of these different rats here, part of what you understand is it's not necessarily like traditional rats that are the problem. You need some of like the rat men, like the larger rats, or some of like the sickened rats. So when you go through, you're not necessarily grabbing every single one of these tails that you have right here. But as you're kind of like going through, you're looking for the ones that you're at least willing to take to the guards and try to tell them that like sore there is because it's a plague rat's tail, or that big one over there is clearly from a rat man. They're all ones that you're willing to do that, but you can collect 10 of them from these rats.
Okay, yeah, yeah. This is definitely the sort of thing that he would be likely to embellish and try to uh, pawn off as perhaps something more than it actually was. But yeah, so once he's kind of done with that, kind of looking towards Briff. Briff looks okay. He looks all right. Just he's got a few bites, but otherwise he looks okay. Kind of shakes his head and kind of nodding with to Briff. It's like definitely a beer after this. But shall we? Kind of hold out his hand and kind of gesture kind of downwards, I guess into the through
Basically,
the
like
kind of
below the sewer now, you're continuing on down that curvature.
yes, sorry, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Let me have you roll a d8 and a D100, please.
7 and then a 86 on the D100.
Gotcha. So as you drop down into this next section, I have to admit I knew that it was a potential. I did not actually create another map to like kind of continue on here. We are kind of getting close to a closing point, but you're going to kind of drop down and find another little area that is again some of this kind of like bulbous crags in the rocks. You can see kind of honeycombing in the rocks ahead of you, but nothing that looks especially prepared for you to like immediately go into it. But you can kind of like, let me have you roll a perception check.
18.
As you kind of like you're in like a singular room that's maybe 30 feet by like 20 or so feet tall, like where this curvature opens up. It's all like the same rock that almost like split in two along this strange curve, and it's only on one side of it that you kind of have just this wall of these like holes into the stone, and it's a very eerie feeling, but this is like one of those recognitions, like magic and very powerful civilizations are what created everything down here. um this is more or less the type of thing you guys can continue to develop forward, but continuing deeper into this place right now is beyond your capabilities. It's basically going to be where you can mine, like towards the future kind of thing. But I do want you to roll um, a D4 and a D100, please.
That's a 2 and then a 25.
So when you're kind of going through some of these areas, you're going to find like one of these like honeycomb sections has kind of like sounds almost coming from it. And as you kind of like listen in, you can kind of hear like eerie moans and kind of like grunts of large kind of beings, and it'll bring in some of the kind of like tales that some of the denizens of the necropolis, which is kind of like the northeastern side of the city, some of the dead are said to wander through kind of these lower areas here. And while you're kind of like listening into this area, you're just gonna kind of notice, like with your head there, there's something just inside that's catching the light a little bit. And you're kind of like just beyond your ability to just like reach into this like tube into the rock to get your hands at it. But it's right at the edge of what you can see. Seems to be a little gold box made of like a red wood, and it kind of has gold filigree around the edges.
Yeah, so that definitely catches his attention. He can't quite reach it. Is it if he was to take his um like his blade and try to reach it through and almost try to like kind of snag like an edge and almost like kind of drag it back towards it, like is it too far away for him to if he reaches out with the blade and his arm extended?
You're looking to get the tip of your rapier basically like on some part of the box so you can try to slide it towards you.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, if you've got sleight of hand, let me get a sleight of hand from you.
All right. And then +5 sleight of hand.
Oh yeah, that's solid. If you're getting in there with a 24, you're definitely able to kind of get the tip of your rapier like into one of these like golden corners, and you might even feel that it's digging a little bit into the actual like wood. You can't tell yet. You'll find out soon. But you have a pretty solid purchase on it, and you can hear like it's sliding. These seem to be smooth enough that you don't hear like a heavy kind of friction, like grittiness like sandpaper, but you're going to be able to slide this box closer to you. And you're going to see that it almost looks like kind of like a little child's music box. It's more or less a rectangle, kind of like 6 by 8 and 4 or so inches tall. It has some nice kind of gold inlay across the top. The box itself, it's probably worth like a solid fortune to somebody like you. 10, 20 gold, if not more.
Okay. And given the size of the kind of the niche, does it look like it would be able to fit, or would I need to widen the opening to try and pull it through?
Oh, my bad. No, I'm already saying you've gotten it to you.
Oh, okay. Okay. I sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so he will kind of, yeah, excitedly as his kind of thing trick works, but kind of in the back of his mind he's like, oh, I should get something to, reach your, you know. But he will, yeah, so he'll take the box, he'll kind of before he can he'll kind of move to show it excitedly to Briff. Um this is a good start at least, and
He's gonna kind of like throw his like elbow into your shoulder, maybe a little bit harder than you would like, as he kind of like jokes to you. Deeper we go, the richer we get.
yeah, so he'll like kind of wince, but then try to like play it off as he feels the elbow, and indeed, though uh might be hate to be the voice of caution, but you might want to think a bit before going too much deeper. I did hear some rather loud noises coming from nearby.
As you kind of like bring the word of caution to those, like he's already like almost like sizing up his hammers to all of these different holes, like looking at this wall, like this is an obstacle in front of him finding more and more of these boxes. And when you kind of like bring like the word of caution back to him, he's already like almost starting to like tap his hammer almost like mindlessly, as he kind of like lost focus a little bit. His like wrist is just like softly back and forth, and he's just like feeling out just that little bit of variance. He's like feeling the stone, and you get his attention, and he's gonna look back to you, and he's like, maybe not today. We could come back.
Oh, I fully intend to come back. Yes. Um, just know this is quite unlike me, but I'm a little leery of pressing my luck too much further tonight. But it's been a good night, all things considered, and tomorrow even better.
Um, I think before he considers going up, he's gonna be eyeing that box. Once you've got his eye back on you and kind of the attention of like the dangers ahead, like keeping him from bashing down that wall, He's gonna kind of look to you and, well, what's in the box? It's kind of like coming towards you, like maybe not with like a hammer out, but at very least he's starting to like reach for the box. Where if you're not opening it, he's about to tear that thing open. Like,
Yeah. So Dalton will yeah, he was like, yes, sorry, it's just so pretty on the outside, but he will move to try to open it as before Briff can reach him.
gotcha. Let me have you roll a d4.
Two.
So you start to open it, and you're going to see like a little kind of like gap of a spark, and it's gonna kind of cross your eye, like, oh shit, traps. And you're just gonna see that little bit of like a flash of blue, kind of white light. Um, Griff might even spot a little bit of it. And 11, yeah, he probably sees it even too. And within a moment, you kind of see his demeanor change, and you're gonna like feel like no burning sensations, no odd feelings, and like both of you are gonna realize in the same moment, like there was a trap, and it just didn't go off. But you've got this box open in front of you, and there's a little actually, wait, I don't think I actually looked at your D100 roll. So I'm just gonna call for it again. Can I have you roll a D100?
Oh, I don't think he actually. I don't know. Maybe I might have missed it. E100 coming up.
Yeah, it's one of those. Oh no, no, I think it was a while ago. I think you rolled it and we just moved on. It's definitely an owl bear. 54 there. Is that it?
50, 52 would be the D100.
Gotcha. So yeah, you see inside of there is a small piece of silver that kind of like continues up and kind of around, almost like a softly bent L or a J that didn't really fully hook up. But you just kind of see it's almost like a right angle turn, and it kind of moves a little bit slowly. And then there's delicate, like, inlays of silver that kind of like extend down and back towards the other side. So it almost creates like a square about like 3 or so centimeters, a little bit more than an inch along each of the sides. But like the top side of this corner is thicker, like very silvery, shiny metal. And then there's a few kind of like soft chains that dangle down along this kind of same path between those 2 points in the thicker part of the silver material. And this little object is in there, as well as there is a small vial that has a little bit of a silver liquid, and just in kind of like the motion of opening the box, you can see there's like maybe like an ounce in this small vial, and there's a little bit of a slosh to it, and you can see that like inside of the silver there's another liquid that you can't see, but you can see like this slow like bubble and very like liquid hydraulic flow of the water inside of there, almost like a lava lamp as this vial kind of moves a bit. But there's those two objects inside.
Yeah, so he's like kind of like he winces as he sees the light, and then he's like closes his eyes, and then opens it, and then opens the other one. Kind of looks at Briff and almost kind of like chuckles, like relieved. Um, and then yeah, looks inside the box, kind of sees these things, kind of he might move to as he's like if he kind of opens the box, like if Briff isn't able to see it immediately, he might try and kind of just very quickly pocket uh um the little vial and then kind of turn and show the box to Briff.
Gotcha. So you want to do a sleight of hand, and then you're basically going to show him the box with that like silver piece of jewelry.
Yep, that's the idea. Yep.
Gotcha. Let's go for the sleight of hand here.
16.
As you kind of like spin it around to him, as far as he seems to notice, he's getting stoked to see that there's a really nice box actually had jewelry inside, and kind of looking it over. He's gonna take a look at it and seems to be stoked. Um, I think probably one of the first things that he might say that's more comprehensible than anything else is simply looking for like your opinion. Like, what do you think this is worth? Box is 20, 30 gold. 40 for the jewelry. We're doing well. Start. He's like looking at you, thinking about his coins. He's like 80, 120 ish. We're like close to being at our payoff.
Yeah. I don't know if uh that would have a real good reason to know like the value of the jewelry, but he would essentially be kind of yeah eyeballing it, kind of yeah sounds about right to me. Kind of as Griff is saying that we are certainly getting uh, might just be almost enough just with this. If we could find a couple more things, and if I could pass a few of those rat tails, get a few coins for those.
He's gonna slap you on the back like almost at the exact same time as you're saying rat tails. He's saying, and those rat tails. And then like recognizing that you say it at the same time, he's gonna like hit you again on the back and he's like, yeah, we're doing well down here.
We are indeed. I'm glad you convinced me to come down here, Griff. I think our luck is really changing for the better.
So if you get situated and climb back up and kind of like return to this area, my map's glitching.
Okay, yeah. So I see back in the area with the rat tokens where we before we came down.
Yeah, my like browser again, like I know Owlbear and Brave has have issues, but like the die rolling box creates like a weird like see-through window. So it was I don't know, I think I was looking at the proclamation about the rat tails, but like it got stuck on the window. But yeah, as you guys kind of like climb back out of here, you're kind of looking at two different ways that you can go from the corridors that you've kind of explored already. It's back into that like almost hall-like corridor where you have a big wider section that opens up in the northeast, or kind of straight ahead as you walk out of this area. There's a section that kind of goes off into the northwest.
Yeah, I think Dalton will and just let me know when I should be lighting up another torch, like when another hour has passed.
What we do was like between the rats.
Then we
You'd
spend
probably
some
be
time.
on the third torch around this time. Because it was technically digging for another hour, I think, before the rats happened, and then you got through.
Yeah, and then probably took some time to like in the niche, and then we spent some time admiring the box and all that.
Yeah, I think being on your third torch now is a pretty solid moment. You probably have a little bit more time before I'd say you're moving to your fourth, but it's definitely in the later stages of its life.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. So Dalton will think maybe we kind of coming back around this corridor, kind of looking up towards the northwest. So up kind of this way.
So as you come around the northwest, it's not letting me click that. Oh, I feel like this is the area that I found before. So let me see if I can do it like this. Can you see through part of that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Some
Are
of
you?
it's been uncovered for me. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not like the ideal way to do it. I like this. A part of why I really like Owlbear Rodeo is I can make areas of shadow and delete them one at a time, but for some reason it didn't want to let me select them there. So as you kind of like look into this area, it kind of curves a little bit. You have an opening into kind of cavern off to your west, which is a large opening, maybe 20 or so feet walking between the rocks. You can see like a little bubble of space up and beyond you to the north, and then another kind of turn off seems to be along the right side that continues off there. Any thoughts as you kind of like come to oh wait, I also need you to roll a d8, please. Yeah, so you come to this corner. There's maybe like a little bit of kind of like water seepage. Like in the ceiling, you can kind of like hear a little bit of like the drips. And you can kind of see like the area on the like left side beyond you might be like a different cavern. It might be an actual like stalagmite, stalactite that have created like a little like natural pillar in this room. It is perhaps a really large room instead of a few smaller rooms.
So he's gonna kind of look towards Briff, and then he's gonna look towards that kind of does he see an opening to try to be able to get towards that little kind of area?
My bad. I didn't mean to delete that one. What area were you thinking though?
The sorry, the area you were just talking about like the little kind of that you said like might be a large stalagmite, or it might be kind of where the water is seeping through.
Oh yeah, that was kind of where I was getting at. It was kind of like the center of this area. So when you get to what I've now revealed to be an
Ah,
actual like natural pillar in that room, the like dripping water overhead was just kind of a clue.
gotcha.
Very minor little thing to like set the scene of what this like. Some of these areas are really large. Some of these are like the chest thumping. I think I just got myself stuck in the rock. But yeah, if you kind of head through there, let me have you roll again another d6.
Sell me that's a five.
Gotcha.
Right on the edge
So,
there.
kind of continuing in through this room, you can still see that there's a way to go off to the east. As you all kind of like walk off to the west here, you can see that there's like a larger opening, maybe two pathways ahead. Maybe it's one large pathway. It's kind of hard to tell, but you just have to kind of like move forward.
Yeah, so he's going to continue. If we don't have to squeeze, let's not. So he'll head for the kind of north towards the what looks like it might be a larger passageway.
Oh my gosh. I wish I could delete that. So as you continue to the right side there, you're going to see that it does kind of like continue on. It is kind of split by another like natural pillar in the stone here. And you're just kind of crossing by and opening up into a larger kind of cavernous hall. Oh, it was way too big. Into a larger cavernous hall. And you can kind of see like there's a way for you to go to the left that probably continues back to where you've just come, like back to the other side, or you can continue forward here and kind of see um, it curves like a little around to the right.
Yeah,
Did I have you roll a d6 for that one?
I
I don't
think
think
so, but
so. Can I have? Okay, that
if I
might have
did,
been.
I forgot
Was
what
it
it
five?
was. I think that was the last d6 I rolled, but I can roll another one if.
Okay, it's fine. If you continue into the next section here, because that you're either going backwards towards that old way that you had to go to the east, or you can continue on to this next section. But can I get another d6 roll?
Okay, yep, another 5 then there. And yeah, he's continuing on kind of around up north, I guess, towards the as it curves around. Yeah.
So you're going to see a similar thing here, where moving across this area, it's now kind of splitting in three ways. There's been a few of these where you've seen it's kind of really just the same cavern that's splitting into two. But you basically have, like, as you round that corner, you could continue straight ahead and go downward a little bit, or you can move a little bit to the like east, staying on the north side of that first area of rock and go through there, or even further to the north and continue almost like a little bit northeast around a third way. Do you have a thought there?
He's gonna try the northeastern direction branch.
Gotcha. Going to the furthest part there. Let me have you roll a d4. Coming around this corner, you're going to see that it opens up into kind of a large open hall. You can kind of very quickly head through there, or you're pretty sure there's some space that's opening up on the right. But you can kind of feel like a slant in the stone. To go there, it's probably the type of thing where you're going to be like one way street. If you go to the west, you're not going to be able to immediately get back up to this area.
Um,
It's kind of like south or go downward.
yeah, I think he'll try. He's gonna try moving south first.
Gotcha. Let me have you roll a d6 here. Why does it click when I don't mean to? I can't believe this. I've got two things clicked right now. But when I go to click something, it doesn't work. Um, So you're going to see this kind of cavern opening up in front of you, kind of continues along. You can like shine your torch like over this ledge and kind of see like a little bit of cavern opening up below you. You're reasonably sure it would connect backward to effectively like where your counter is right now, or potentially backward to that old room that you've come to, that you came from before. But continuing this way, you have a small corridor to your right, the left side of the screen, or a larger kind of cavern opening up ahead of you to the south.
He's gonna move towards the larger cavern.
Gotcha. Let me get you to roll a d6. Let me have you roll a D4 and a D100. The one was the D4.
One was a D4 and then a 33 on the D100.
So you are going to find a little wrap of leather that sits on the ground. There is a piece of parchment inside of this wrap of leather that has language written on it that you cannot read, as well as a um, large vial, probably about the size of your fist. You can see that there's kind of like inlay in the crystal, that there is a dragon that seems to be like striking down into a little lion. Looking at the glasswork, that itself is pretty fine, but when you kind of like slosh it around in the light of your lamp, you can see that like moving this liquid inside, it starts to almost turn into like a ruby red before it almost like starts to thicken and gets like a deep dark crimson before it almost like turns to black, and it's kind of like a like solid sludge inside. But then when you like let it sit still, it's going to kind of like slowly turn clear to where once it sits still for a few moments, it just looks almost like clear like water.
Yeah, so he'll spend a little bit of time kind of, yeah, swirling it around, kind of. Um, he'll turn, kind of show it to Briff. Looking at the parchment, is he able to tell? He can't read the writing, but is he able to tell kind of the quality of the parchment? Does it seem to be damaged in any way? Is it like more kind of like a nicer vellum or more cheaper parchment?
Do you have a reason to have an expertise in paper?
He does have skill with a forger's kit, so I imagine that would give him some familiarity.
Gotcha. Do either of your parents work in that trade? Is that part of where you picked it up? Or is a forger's kit something that you've kind of been dabbling with, more of like necessity in the last few years?
Yeah, I think it's more something he's been kind of dabbling with on his own. I'm almost thinking like maybe he, to make a little extra money, maybe for like some friends, he started off just like forging little like notes or papers or kind of thing. More
Gotcha.
self-taught.
Let me get an intelligence and you can add your proficiency. I feel like that's probably the best role that you'd really have with that.
All right,
I
so
think
that'll
that'll
make
be
it
solid
in
for it.
18. Yeah.
So, looking over it, I think you could certainly see signs that this is a higher quality paper. It is a parchment, so it is definitely a fibrous material that was created. In these times, it's probably on the verge of only the nicest books are kind of done in vellum. There's like printing presses that print the daily news in Ptolus. So, in the long run, people who could afford to write notes on vellum, they would have the luxury to really show off their actual wealth in that they have like really nice paper created. Um, so I would say there's definitely like a solid break off where like vellum's usually simply for preserving it for a long time. A lot of people kind of show off their wealth with their actual nice parchments. and this seems like nice parchment. It could easily be like something where it's a government official document. But this could also just be like a scrap of paper from something nicer. It's not a large piece of paper. But yeah, I think that's pretty solid solution. It's a nice piece of parchment.
Yeah, so definitely, kind of he'll be definitely curious about that. Kind of make a note to himself, find some way to find out what that says. Um, so does the kind of the strap of leather, is it like a more like a case for the parchment to go into, or more like something maybe that was kind of like wrapped around it? Is he able to tell what the?
This is like a very simple like wrap and kind of like discarded item here. Um you're almost just kind of like finding it in kind of like this cleared space. You
Gotcha,
just like see this little wrap.
gotcha. Okay. Um,
Roll a you're already good there. You can kind of feel from the leather that like it's been sitting here for certainly an amount of time. But it's definitely not like years. This is something where somebody's been here.
yeah, so he might. Yeah, so he'd pick up kind of the little piece of leather. He might kind of take a look at it, maybe tuck it in a pocket for now. Probably just garbage, but um, you know, doesn't take up much space. So if they uh, then the similarly with the parchment, he'll try to kind of carefully maybe like roll it up and see if he can find a somewhat protected place in his like a pocket to kind of put it against. I mean, I don't. He probably doesn't know Riff well enough to know what he like how educated he is, but assuming that Briff also kind of saw this before he kind of picked it up, he would just hold out the you make out what this says kind of thing, and then if not, he would just kind of tuck it away.
Yeah, I don't even think you're gonna see him like take the time to even look at the actual note itself. He'd certainly have kind of noticed the actual vial and probably noticed like the filigree that kind of says like this might be something. But like when you go to like show him that, you kind of get this like shrug. He doesn't even go to read it. He may not be able to read. You've certainly heard in time that like Briff is more or less like he was young enough to get into trouble and he got kicked off on his own. He's been lying, cheating, stealing, and fighting his way through gambling to gambling exposure um, for quite a while to get by. He's not like an educated man. Um, so he kind of like shrugs at that. He's kind of excited about the vial, but is still gonna kind of like look. You're looking back on one of the original halls you came to the south, and then you've got two little spots to go to, basically like ahead of you to the west or behind you to the east. You can see each of them are kind of narrow corridors. The one to the east is narrowest.
Yeah, so like with the glass bars, like no idea what's inside, but the glasswork might be worth a pretty coin or two. And then he will suggest let's check out a couple more of these little corridors. He might kind of move towards the little one to his west now.
Let me get a D4. So you're gonna just kind of like move into this area, and you kind of like have this like weird eerie sense, like you're starting to wonder if somebody's here, where you're gonna find like another entrance, and you're just kind of like looking up into the ceilings. You very quickly find that it just kind of loops around to that area where there's kind of a shelf in that last large room. And you can kind of see this way kind of dips around and like back up to the top, but the rock splits in a pretty similar way where you can like shimmy down through this like kind of central area and get down to the lower area. You obviously also know you can kind of like walk back around and simply get back to there, but this area has like a weird spot again, like where you kind of like shimmy between the rock. Um, just as a kind of thought to keep that theme going there. But otherwise, find nothing's really there. Head back into the room, go to the east, go check out the larger room um, that's kind of behind now.
Yeah, I think he'll do that.
Going like into that actual room, like maybe slide down that little like crack in the rock.
Yeah, we got rope to get back up if we need it.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, where this room basically connects back to that large, like, hallway. So if
Oh,
you go
gotcha.
south, you can kind of find your way back up. Going down through this is just like that's what happens in this hall. Like one room is almost like 10 or 15 feet above the other. But like the ceiling is almost the same like bubble. There's just a weird kind of like cleft in the rock. Let me have you roll another d4 here. So looking through this room, simply just going to kind of find that interconnector. You could basically shimmy up the rock on like just kind of south of where your character is, your token is there to get back up to the higher level. You can walk back around, but effectively where you're at with this place, you've got a location to the southwest where you have a small section where you can like break away some rock to go deeper into it. You can go to the east where you have a little section that is like snug, but you can kind of move into.
Uh, yeah, so I think he'll move to he wants to check out maybe that section where he would have to break in, but he might also suggest that they've been down here for a few hours now. Maybe we take a quick rest, before we try to break in through another wall of rock here.
Got you. Do a short rest.
Short rest, yeah.
Let me have you do a d8 roll. You guys can take that time. I think he lost 4 hit points. He can burn a hit dice. I'm pretty sure he's guaranteed to get that. I guess I could roll it, but I'm pretty sure he's like guaranteed to get that.
Was he a D10 or D12?
D12. You got it. I think saying he's
Oh
got
yeah,
like +2 Constitution,
and
so he'll
then
be perfectly fine. Kind of bandaging up some of like the like they're almost like 2 centimeter long gashes where the rats kind of bite into your flesh, because they've got just big piercing teeth. And you just see as he kind of like spends a few moments like taking a little bit of like pine sap and rubbing it into like some linen. So he's got this linen that's just like covered in sap. And then he's like stuffing the sap, like the sappy linen, like into his flesh. And you just see like a guy who just shaved kind of has like toilet paper on his face. Like he just has these like chunks of like off-white yellow linen like stuffed into all of these rat holes around his body. But like as you guys kind of finish up this hour, they'll kind of look forward to you. For what it's worth, we're coming to the end here. Can I have you just roll three more d4s?
Yep. And you see, like, Dalton is very much the opposite. Like, he's kind of like he's looking. He's like every time he sees like a little kind of where the teeth might have gotten through the cloth of his shirt, he kind of gives a little wince, and he's like trying to be very careful about how he's patching himself up. But yeah. So it's sorry, three more d4s.
Yes, please. Just looking for ones.
Three,
Actually,
four,
no. I
three.
guess really ones or fours.
The second one was a four.
Gotcha. Everything else was two or three. So let me have you roll a d4 and a d100.
So it's a three on the d4 and 76.
Alrighty. As you head down into this first area where your model is over here, you're kind of like pushing through, having to struggle through another area where the stone is really narrow. Find a little pocket, and it has some of the similar kind of like curves to it where the stone looks like it's split almost like the peel of a fruit, and you can kind of see that like it extends downward some and it extends upward some, but you feel or you can see enough that you're pretty sure you're seeing the signs where it comes back together. You'll have to investigate that a little bit further in the future. But like when you go to look around, you see towards the end where this room kind of has that shape. There's an area that's kind of split and it continues off like laterally, like on the same depth where you're already at from where you are, and you just need to hammer away at the stone. When you all take the time to get this wide enough to go through, you eventually kind of push through, and this is where you're going to find again one of these sections where there's this curved split in the stone. It seems to lead deep and down at a very steep angle. This is another situation where you have another place to explore. It goes downward again. This one will, at least from what you can see on an initial tell, need some like solid spelunking gear because you're going straight down at least further than you can see with the light. Whereas like the other one that you saw near those rats, you could actually see the base of um, kind of from where you were. You just had to clear your way to it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So he will be trying to make note of that, realizing that they may not be quite prepared enough for that on this initial foray, but definitely kind of would be like to Briff is like, we'll come back and find out what might be down there someday soon.
So when you are inside of that room, you are going to locate a few more items that are once again in a kind of like weird way, like they're inside of the stone in a safe setting, but you're still in a place where you're seeing all of these cracks, but not really places for people to go. This is going to be one of those things where you maybe don't know everything about all the things that have happened in here, but a lot of the people who have kind of controlled the undercity you're starting to really see signs of like how they can manipulate the stone. Um, and there's a certain level of like just this first experience might really show you that like powerful mages can almost pass through this stuff like it's butter, and you can almost start to see like in these flowing curves, it's almost like the shape of like how somebody would reach out with their hand, like from finishing a spell next to their chest, and if they reach out with their palm like open in front of them, it's like that arc that an arm does, and you can almost see like as these like slashes kind of cut through the rock. But inside of this little um, case, you are going to, I need you to actually roll, I think a d12. But there is a piece of armor. Was that the one there?
Yep, that was the D12. Oh, you might have cut off.
Oh, my bad. So there is a piece of armor inside of there. It's a pretty basic kind of just leather armor in that it's not like studded with anything to make it stronger. It's kind of really just almost like a thick daily kind of thing that you might be able to wear around and be a little bit less discreet. But it seems to be this nice leather armor. It's got a little bit of gold filigree around the shoulders that make like a second layer of like a pauldron, so it looks nicer. It's not like going to full on war, but it looks like some pretty nice armor, and it's kind of wrapped up in this cloth. Inside of that, there is another piece of parchment, as well as another little vial, and this one seems to be clear when you move it to like look for any like level of like motion in it. You can like see the surface, and as you like go to shake it, like the surface kind of like slowly starts to move, like it's a really thick kind of viscous fluid, and you just kind of like move it back, and it just seems to be some sort of very thick, clear liquid inside of it.
Mm. And the parchment, is it similarly? Is he unable to make out what it says? And in fact, he might actually compare it to the first piece of parchment and see if he's able to determine, does these appear to be from the same, maybe pieces of the same manuscript or written in the same hand.
Roll an Arcana check.
So that would be a 4.
A 4. I think you could certainly see that it is different then. It's certainly not the same handwriting. And it's very much a different kind of style. This is more kind of like a full page that's like wrapped into a roll and then kind of tied shut with a like a little piece of purple ribbon that has a little kind of uh seal kind of across the ribbon in the parchment where it's rolled. Um, yeah, and the other one is more or less just kind of like a flat square that's vaguely square. But you can kind of see like it probably wasn't created in that square. It was probably like cut or torn to make that shape.
Gotcha. Okay. And then when he had kind of finding the armor, he would have just kind of done a quick look over to see if he saw any obvious I don't know if Ptolus would have like the different places would have like their own maker's marks, or if it's more sort of industrialized and just very um kind of mass produced kind of stuff.
Roll a d100. Um, my bad. My brain has just blanked. This you're asking about the
Oh, sorry. So he would have like he just wanted to kind of check over the armor, the leather armor they found to look for any sort of like maker's
oh,
mark
Maker's
or
Mark. Um, yeah, I think you could see that this armor has a Maker's Mark on it. I would say it is not going to be one where you immediately recognize the actual Maker's Mark of, but you have a Maker's Mark to work with.
yeah, he wouldn't. Yeah, he wouldn't have any reason to like know a bunch of them, but he would just be kind of again curious. So he would try to kind of yeah, just make a mental note of it and uh yeah, and then he would obviously kind of share these finds with Briff. Figures he can probably get something for the armor. This liquid don't Briff didn't seem to give too much interest in the other parchment, so he wouldn't really focus. He wouldn't really um, talk about that. But
So I do have to call it now. Sunday is the day I have to go a little bit earlier than always. So we'll have to call it here. I think this is a solid time that we can probably just deal with the end of this mission, like out of character, just when we have a little bit of free time. Pretty much what I'm gonna put to you is, Briff is essentially going on this as your partner. So this is kind of like anytime you would have a like minion with you, where on some level you're cutting them in on things. As far as things go, though, I would say consider more what you might want to try to hide from the criminal element than necessarily what you're trying to hide from him. Um, for what it's worth, when you guys come away with this, I think it's pretty safe to say Griff is going to be perfectly happy.